Greetings, and welcome to another GatherVerse Summit, Day 2, Money, our 34th global gathering. We're so happy to have each of you with us today, some for the first time, and some upon your return. We greet you all. We're happy to have everyone here at GatherVerse.live and assembling in other various different social streams that we're broadcasting to, which is quite considerable. GatherVerse meets at the intersection of emerging technologies and humanity, humanizing technology one global conversation at a time, with a specific emphasis on accessibility and education, equality, community development, safety, privacy, wellness, ethics, and trust. In this world of currency, fiat, blockchain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more, digital currencies, ecosystems, physical on the material layer and then the virtual layer of buy, sell, trade, barter, real world assets, and more. The exploration of money, the journey to better understand where have we been, where we are, and where we might be headed. This summit is not necessarily about prosperity and wealth building. There's other incredible summits for that. This summit is to help us to better understand where we're at when it comes to money as an overarching narrative that leads and drives towards greater sustainability for human betterment. Access, distribution, startup scale, and more. We're seeing more investments happen this time, contemporary to our time, in technology, not only than any other type of technology that we've seen invested, but anything we've ever seen invested in our whole entire lives, and that's happened all the way through the ages, if you will. With the hyperscale of artificial intelligence and the many myriads of intersections that involves with this scale, we've seen this year alone over $6.9 trillion in financial investments when it comes to the scale of data centers and more. This lets us know that when we start to look at the capacity and the capability of planet Earth, the business world is doing its level best to drive as much energy to be able to sustain that. And to scale a technology that we know little about. No matter what vertical that you find yourself in, everyone will be affected by these emerging technologies, and not just artificial intelligence, but extended reality. What does this mean when we start to think about the currency narrative intersecting with these as well? When we think about climate, planetary wellness. We have so many summits that are coming up, and yet we have even more summits this week and next, with our food summit tomorrow, exploring our health and not just our physical diet, but our information diet as well. We have our book summit next week to better understand authorship, narrative, and authenticity when it comes to written literary works, fiction and nonfiction, if you will. In January, we head towards the Superhero Engine She Summit 2026. This may very well be the biggest summit we've ever held. We're doing our level best not to have a week 2, but it looks like we may have a second week altogether. Tell a friend, tell a sister, a daughter, a niece. Then we head into our AI Summit, 4th Summit, in February, and then our 5th annual GatherVerse convening, our Global Summit. Then we head into education crisis, women's health. Then we explore climate in a very intimate way, and so forth and so on, what have you. Needless to say, there's a lot to be expressed and there's a lot to be said. There's never been more of an important time for us to hold such conversations and to be able to assemble experts, professionals, to hold these conversations. Transmetropolitan, transcontinental, tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a stranger. GatherVerse is live. We have an incredible roundtable coming up, led by Andrea Carmago, and she is not alone. And now we'll have a few words from our good friends and our sponsors at Pico, who seem to care more about humanity than most when it comes to technology. Thank you, Pico, for having our backs and helping us get the opportunity to produce what we have today freely. May our gather be well.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this panel. So happy to see some that we already met and talked in different panels, like Emily. Hey, how are you? So let's do a round of introductions. I will be last. Maybe Marianne, you want to start? Maybe you can tell us about you, what your projects are, what you're working on, and something we don't know about you.
Of course, thank you, Andrea. So, hi everyone, I'm Marian Villa. I work in developer relations at Interledger Foundation. The mission, we are building an open, inclusive financial ecosystem that gives people access and opportunity no matter where they are. My work seeks an intersection between technology, community, and human connections, and that's why today's conversation matters to me. Thank you, and I'm grateful to be here and excited to join this conversation.
Amazing, Marianne. Thank you. Dr. Juliet, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning from my side of the world. My name is Dr. Juliet Agocha. I am the founder of Ultimate Tech. We are all about technology. We are here in the Maryland location, DC. I am also currently an advocate for the community. I'm also running for county council for my district. And I am so happy to be here to connect and also to pass knowledge. So thank you so much for having me today.
Beautiful. Thank you, Juliet. Maybe Janine? I think you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now? Perfect. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeannie Doherty, and my clients call me the Money Whisperer. And I'm also in the Maryland area. I'm actually in the Bethesda area, and I work with couples as well as entrepreneurs because I help them rewire their money brain. Because if we're investing in new technology and trying to break our old patterns, we need to rewire that money brain.
Amazing. Thank you, Jenny. Antoine, sorry, I maybe mispronounced your name.
No, it's okay. It's Antoine. Good morning, guys. How y'all doing? I'm Antoine. I'm the founder of Legatree. Legatree is a legacy management platform designed to help families transfer all things that are important to them, from documents to videos, images, and then be able to transfer that legacy on to the next generation. Something interesting about myself, I am a professional poker player. I travel the circuit playing tournament poker.
Great, thank you, Antoine. Emily?
Hello, everybody. I'm Emily Wright, joining from Vancouver, Canada. I am a certified life coach focusing on the intersection of psychology and technology and looking at how our behavior can be manipulated through algorithms and content online. And I'm excited to be here for this summit today because I'm a big proportionate for universal basic income. And I think that it's something that can help us to find fulfillment and to be able to maximize our potential. So I'm excited to see how this conversation goes today.
Thank you, Emily. And Christy?
Yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Christy Straw. I'm coming to you from Charlotte. I'm a former banking and wealth management executive turned entrepreneur, best-selling author, and keynote speaker. I'm really excited to be here today because my work sits at the intersection of visibility, influence, and profit. And I do a lot of speaking and coaching around those items. Something that's interesting about me is that I'll be 45 on Friday, and I'm calling it 40 fine, and I love it.
Amazing. Happy birthday, and hope you have a great day. So my name is Andrea Camargo. I'm the founder of Refi Collective. We're based in Bogota, Colombia. We work with regenerative design and blockchain technologies to redefine the value of money. Because, I mean, we all want to attract financial capital to our territories, but sometimes we don't question where this money is coming from and what are the paradigms that are, like leading the money narrative. So really happy to be here with you all. I think we're gonna have an amazing conversation. Please jump in whenever you want. I will just guide with the questions, but this space is yours. So how do you define fulfillment beyond financial wealth? And what metrics can we use to measure it? Maybe it would be interesting. Janine, you want to start? Jenny, sorry.
Sorry, my mic got stuck again. I'm sorry. Could you please repeat the question?
Yes. How do you define fulfillment beyond financial wealth? And what metrics can we use to measure it?
So how I encourage myself and obviously my clients to find the fulfillment is to think a little bit more long-term than what is quick and dirty and fast. A lot of times what we focus on is what is good, fast, and cheap. And then we go off the rails because we're trying to do everything at low cost without always understanding that in order to build wealth, it might take you longer, it might take you more money, but that may be part of the journey. So the metrics that I encourage, besides the basics about savings and investing, which is it's like, well, who's in your circle? Like, who do you keep closest to you? What are you following? What is your financial diet, or what is your, time away from music or just reading? Like, what else do you nourish yourself with? Because if all you hear is an echo chamber, it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, you are still missing out.
Amazing. That's super interesting. Like, whatever we see outside, we also replicate inside, right?
Yes.
Marianne, do you want to comment on this one?
Yeah, so I think fulfillment, at least for me, is the alignment between what I value, what I create, and how I contribute to others. So it's a measure less by money and more by energy, meaning, and connection. And I look at metrics like the quality of my relationships, how often I feel proud like of my work, and wherever I'm growing while helping others grow.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I agree. Who else wants to comment on fulfillment and those metrics? Yeah,
Yeah, I can.
Antoine, go ahead.
I think for me, I'm like the designated tech person for my circle, for my friends and family. So I found myself building apps that are personal only for them to use. So I really get a big, a joy, a kick out of that. And the way I measure that is just how impactful the project or the app that I built for the family, like how impactful is it really to their lives? Like, does it change? Does it help them? So I've built about 6 or 7 apps for family and friends that probably will never see, the internet. So
Amazing. And I see this connection between, feeling fulfilled and attracting that abundance and that wealth, looking into that long run, not just the short victories, right? Let's go to our next question. So, what factors contribute to a feeling of fulfillment, and how can it be nurtured? Maybe Christy, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So, as far as if I'm feeling fulfilled or not, or my clients, it really is a matter of what kind of freedom do you have? So, for me, as I exited corporate and entered the founder world and am now on a board for women venture tech scalable founders, I really am interested to hear what their idea of fulfillment is so that they don't experience burnout outside of corporate like so many of us did while we were inside of corporate. And so I talk a lot about freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of relationship, meaning I can pick and choose who I want in my life, whether that's professionally or personally, family or otherwise. I'm not obligated to any. And to be able to have the freedom to choose that is oftentimes for my own clients something that they're really working toward. They really want to stop feeling obligated and secretly or not so secretly resentful of not feeling fulfilled. And so a lot of times I find that when we start talking about the freedoms, right, your time freedom, your money freedom, your relationship freedom, and your purpose freedom, what is the purpose that you're trying to make in the world? For me, I left and created a whole private dinner series that's now gone global because I didn't like that executives didn't have high EQ. It really bothered me. So when I left, I thought, my purpose is going to be to create a place where people can come and have these types of conversations and it's the norm versus you being the outlier for having emotional intelligence and all those good things. So I would say it's the freedoms. How many of the freedoms do you have? And that translates to fulfillment.
Wow, that's really powerful because it shifts the story from, okay, I need financial wealth to then achieve freedom. Instead, we look into what makes us free at the beginning, and then all these things will just kind of flow, right?
Snaps for you.
Thank you so much, Christy. Emily, and after Julia.
Hi. Yeah, it's interesting. Last night I was looking through these questions and I asked my partner what he thought fulfillment was, because he says all the time that he feels really fulfilled and he's living the life that makes him happy. And he said, deriving joy and satisfaction from your actions and having your actions aligned with your beliefs. And I thought it was really cool, so I wrote it down. And I think that it comes back to what Marion was saying about having your values aligned with your actions, because I feel like in the current economy, sometimes we have to make choices about whether or not we want to act on in terms of our ethics and our values, or do we do what we need to do to survive. And I think navigating that balance can help us find fulfillment. Is a little difficult to measure because it's more of a emotional, energetic thing, and feeling like you're seen and feeling like you're heard and that you're contributing, but also enjoying what you're doing, and you're doing it because you choose it and it makes you feel good, but at the same time honoring that we're a collective species, and there's a certain satisfaction that we get from contributing our unique value to the collective and seeing how that has a ripple effect. Yeah, that's what I would say for that.
Really, really amazing phrase. And I don't know why I thought about this kind of prolonged longevity humans are now having, and how that is going to kind of switch our ideals of the rat race. Sometimes we in our businesses always have like always looking for new businesses, for new opportunities, and having this burnout and not looking into ourselves and our wealth and our health, and how that impacts our longevity and our fulfillment, right? So really important. Juliet, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Andre. I think fulfillment means different for everybody. There are people who fulfillment for themselves is having a family. Some others fulfillment may be education, and some fulfillment is business, right? So for each and every one of us, fulfillment may mean different. But one thing about the factors that contribute to that feeling of fulfillment, I think, is the gratitude that comes from whatever path that we chose to pursue. For those in business, the gratitude of helping a customer, a client. For those like seeking for education, is like the fulfillment of accomplishing maybe a master's degree, doctorate degree. I remember when I was in my PhD, that was my fulfillment at that level. Like, I want to achieve this, right? And then I achieved it. I was so happy. Oh, yes, I did it. Now I'm running for county council now. That is another level of fulfillment for me. So fulfillment is actually like a very diverse something, depend on where we are in our journey and our own alignment and our own purpose. But one thing that it has in common is the gratitude that come with it. So as long as we keep our mind on to the gratitude, and as long as we are not so focused on the money aspect of it, we are focusing on the impact we are bringing from that, I think is what is fulfillment. And how we can nurture fulfillment. I think we can nurture fulfillment in different ways, by, of course, reflecting on what really worked. We can also nurture fulfillment by the impact we leave in others. How do you want someone to remember you? That way we can nurture fulfillment like that, because if you help one person through the skills that you have, I think you're fulfilled for that day or for that season. And we can also invest in what really matters. That is how we can nurture fulfillment by, if maybe you have children, you invest your time in them, you nurture fulfillment like that, because once you have that fulfillment of, this is how I want my family to look like, you are feeling fulfilled in that area. So fulfillment means different for everybody, but one thing that it has in common is gratitude, regardless of the path that you choose. How you feel on the inside is what really matters, and just balancing everything and having gratitude along the way.
Beautiful. Thank you, Julie. And I think that gratitude is also connected to the spiritual experience we're having as humans, right? Like, we connect to like a broader oneness if you will, and you start to evolve your own self, and that fulfillment will also kind of evolve based on your experiences. Let's go to our next questions. How do societal expectations and cultural norms affect our understanding of fulfillment? Who wants to add on this one? Go ahead, Maria.
I was reflecting on what Christine and also Emily and Dr. Juliet said. And I think society often teaches that success is accumulation or like more money, more status, more output. But many cultures, especially in Latin America, also teach us like resilience, community, and the value of collective well-being. And women, especially in tech, carry expectations to be perfect and strong at all times that can distort fulfillment. But working in open technology reminds me, like daily, that contributions, not comparison, is what truly matters.
Yes, and I can relate as I'm also in Latam. It can be a competitive environment, and it can push you to your limits working in technology, and maybe in those moments it's good to reconnect to your purpose, right? Welcome, Sierra. Sorry, I don't have
Yes.
your name.
Hi, how are you, Andrea?
Good, thank you. If you want, you can present yourself, what
Yes,
you're
of
doing,
course.
and join the conversation.
Yes, definitely. I manage distinct projects, not just within one vertical, but also kind of spanning a large group of investors. I represent an investor group, and these investors are always looking for a return on their investments. It's somewhat difficult to talk to them about fulfillment and purpose and all this stuff. And somehow I always intend to make it part of my conversations, which is what sets me apart from other managers or fundraisers. These conversations have to always be nurturing, and that's one thing I keep in mind: is how can I nurture my leads? How can I nurture my investors? Always bringing value is technically my priority, right? I definitely understand that money is money. They got to get their return in the end. And so we discuss numbers, we get all that conversation out of the way. But making it a point to always bring this into substantial roundtable conversations is truly important. And it's necessary within our sphere in order to ground the conversation also. You don't want to be just, over here talking, ideas, projects, innovations, etc. You also want to talk about the essential pillars of building wealth and maintaining a legacy. I established Investors with Legacy to do just that, to make people think about the long term, to get people thinking into the investor mindset and away from the consumer mindset. And this is something that we provide as educational value to my community, and it's free of charge. I don't charge any money for talking about these things and adding value to people, actually giving them the tools to be able to preserve their wealth, essentially, right? And so societal expectations and cultural norms, it's really embedded within this matrix that we live in. In Islam, they call it the dunya. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's technically a cloud, a dream that's built around our experience on this planet. And if I can just get a little spiritual here, we don't come to life to just get all these things, even though they make us think that that's what we're here to do, right? And I like this community that you've built, and then Andrea, and thank you for this space where we can talk about the distinct aspects of wealth. It's not just physical, like assets, it's also mental, it's also spiritual. So if you're feeding all the four pillars of life, which is financial, mental, spiritual, and emotional, then you're off to a good start. And I feel in our generation, people of our generation, if we start, leading with this intent of building all four pillars vertically and in an integrated manner, then wealth is going to become something different. Wealth is going to start, discussing subjects of also wellness and integrating those two things. I feel like if we can expand our perspective and gather greater understanding that money, wealth is energy, and how to manage it, and how to also not fund under stress. Like you mentioned, burnout. That's something that you see in the corporate world left and right. And corporate is so behind, they're barely starting to implement, in hospitals, for example, for nurses, meditations, which is something that, should have been allowed from the start. They should, give you 10 minutes to go do and have a little sacred space for you to go into and do your meditations and such. It's basic stuff that as employers, when head of teams, when you implement that and you nurture your team that way, it strengthens the company, it strengthens the entity, right? So as leaders, understanding this pillar of maintaining your employees' mental health, you're investing in the greatest engine of your company, which is manpower, right? Mental power, mind power. And I feel the only way to do this is to have these conversations. So again, thank you.
No, thank you for that great introduction and your comments. And something that I want to maybe bring to the conversation is you mentioned there are many kind of forms or types of capital. And I think we have mentioned the spiritual capital, intellectual capital, natural capital, maybe material capital as well. We also have social capital, financial, and cultural. I don't know if those are the 8, but this broader perspective of how we see capital make make us more connected to our reality, and to start measuring other things that also matter apart from money, right? And I would like to include Antoine in the conversation because as you also manage family offices or family patrimonies,
Yeah,
how do you
absolutely.
think these different types of capitals play into the long-term strategy for that?
And I think most of our values, our norms, the things that we deem important, it comes from our environment. It comes from our family, our community, the people that we're around. If I'm third generation wealthy, then my whole belief system is accumulation, constantly compounding that interest. But if someone like me that I've never had money, my grandfather, my no one had money in my family. I'm probably the first one to actually try to, start something that can scale and grow. So I think it's really just our environment, where we come from. And so that's one of the reasons why I built, Legatree, is because family means everything to me. So I wanted to build something that every family could benefit from. Every family could pass down their legacy to the next generation, and not just money, right? The platform is really great for important documents, analyzing documents, estate planning, all that good stuff. But it's also about the photos, the audio files, recipes, pictures from the 30s that we have on our platform. And so I think really it just comes down to your environment, what you're around, your family, your friends. That's going to determine, what's norm, what you value. So it's all about environment.
Amazing. Thank you, Antoine. Someone else wants to comment? Yes, Denise.
Okay, I think I got it right this time. Okay. What I was going to say is that the societal and cultural expectations then get bred into our family systems, and we are sort of expected to compete. Doesn't matter if you have a job or if you own a business. Competition is supposed to be healthy, but then we really struggle with collaboration. And yet we make money with other people's money. So collaboration would be the smartest way to do this. When it starts to block our fulfillment, it's because we spend too much time in comparison and competition, that it then basically creates this film, and it's harder to think, so that we are not able to be like, oh, now I'm really clear. I have the clarity. I know what I want to do next, or how I'm going to go about moving myself from A to B to C to D. Because competition is so strong. It's like the only muscle that you use, the only tool in your belt. And then it creates a lopsided society.
I wanted
Yes,
to
I'm really glad.
something there.
Yeah, go ahead.
What Jenny said, and I love that, because I think from the technology aspect of life and community also, I think the societal expectation of and culture norm about fulfillment is because the society see fulfillment as a status and as a title and as a possession. So if, for example, social media is everywhere now, right? People can post anything. Now, the society kind of tag that as, when they see something flashy, luxury, that is their definition of fulfillment. Oh, this person is doing well. But in reality, the person that is not posting may actually be the person who is fulfilled. Right. So I think it's just the societal norm of defining fulfillment as a title. Fulfillment is not a title. It's something that you defined what makes you fulfilled. Is a personalized something. Like I said before, there are people, their fulfillment is family. Some are spiritual, some are physical, some are psychological. So, but the society want to box us in a way whereby fulfillment is measured by luxury, is measured by how many companies you have, it measured by if you are the CEO, it measured by your physical accomplishment. It shouldn't be that way. So I just also want to echo that for those watching us today, that fulfillment is not a status thing, it's not a title thing, it's not your possession. Fulfillment for me, as Dr. Juliet, is how many lives I'm able to change positively. Fulfillment for me is how much impact I'm making in my community. Fulfillment is how do someone see me, how they view me. So for me, I am fulfilled if I can just impact one life a day. So that is what fulfillment means to me. Fulfillment to me is my children. I want to see them happy. I want to see them, doing well in school. That is my own fulfillment, So we have to, as leaders we are, whether through our business or through the community, we have to keep emphasizing the redefinition of fulfillment. It's not title, it's not your possessions, it's not your accomplishment, and all that is the impact that we bring as a community.
Doctor, I have a quick question for you. How do you span these ideas onto your children? Is there a specific method you use in order to get them thinking also in this direction? I know nowadays we're so about instant gratification, and so complementing this with what you just mentioned would be a good tool to have in the toolbox.
Thank you. Yeah, Sarah. I'll say I tell my children about failure more than I tell them about success. I walk my children through my path of how many times I have failed in life, because I think it's very important when we include our vulnerabilities, if we include how much we have failed more than how much we have succeeded, because it's easy to succeed and keep succeeding, then it's easy to fail and pick yourself up. So for me, I like to incorporate failure into every story. This is how mommy started. Listen, I used to be homeless. Oh, mommy, really? So how did you come out of it? So that impact, I make them to understand, is not about the failure. It's about how I was able to use that failure to do something positive right now in the community. So for me, it's about telling my children that life is not about roses. Okay, so you can expect to have peanut butter in it, and it's okay. But what matters in life is how much that you are able to use what happened to you to now become a voice for others. I have seen people who suffered domestic violence, and now they are advocate for domestic violence. They don't want another person to pass through that. So that is what fulfillment is all about. And that is what I see there. this society is actually into kind of luxury a lot more than like kind of knowledge. So it's just kind of passing valuable knowledge, including failure stories and success stories along the way. I think that's how I'm able to put my children into a great perspective about what fulfillment is. I hope I'm able to answer your question.
No, that's really, really amazing. And I recently read that 98% of our DNA, of those genes, we don't know what they're coding for. We just know that what the 2% does, but the other 98% we don't know. And probably, I don't know, it's my hypothesis that the stories that we tell our children and the next generations, they also have that in their DNA, right? I mean, there is so much more information that we still don't know where it goes. But I think passing on these type of narratives and stories is so important for us to reconnect to our nature within different cultures, you know. Let's go to this next question. Yeah. So that brings to, I mean, it connects to the community a lot. And I think we've talked about it, our society and our relationships. But how important is community connection in the pursuit of fulfillment? Maybe Emily can start.
Yeah, I feel like we've touched on this a few times where we recognize we are a communal species and community is really important to us. And we can see how, right now we're in a bit of a loneliness epidemic, and there are many of us that have challenges understanding what fulfillment means in the first place. And I think some of that comes from the current structure of society and economics, where we are so competitive, as you're talking about before, and we have inadvertently created more space between us, even though there's more of us living in a closer space. If you look at our downtown spaces, we have so many people crammed in a small area, but that isn't necessarily building community. There are a lot more people that feel like they're surrounded by strangers, and yet at the same time we're taught stranger danger. So if you're living in a space where you're constantly surrounded by strangers and there's strangers all around you, then that's not going to help you feel secure. And I think it can be challenging to find fulfillment and find lasting fulfillment rather than just temporary satisfaction when you don't feel connected and you don't feel connected to other people. And at the same time, if you don't feel validated, if you're trying to put your creation out there, you're using your time the best you can to try and create something for yourself and contribute to society. But if you're not getting any feedback, if you're not getting anybody saying, hey, this is great, if you're not seeing that one person a day who is benefiting from what you're doing, it can be hard to continue to pursue that, and it can be hard to see the value in that yourself. So I'd say, yeah, it is very important. And I'd like to see that shift in the next few years and us to find our sense of community to help us find our sense of self and sense of fulfillment.
Wow, really powerful what you just said, Emily. And connecting also the kind of perspective that competition sometimes feels more familiar than collaboration. I mean, in nature, there is competition, of course, there is predation, but the most energy efficient way of co-creating is through collaboration, right? And if we can be inspired by nature's principles, it kind of runs through us, and we can apply this to our organizations, to our families as well, and reconnect not only to each other but to that ecological wisdom that surrounds us. Maybe who wants to comment on community connection? Maybe Antoine
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah.
or Marian? Go
I
ahead.
think as we enter this agentic age of technology that we're heading into, where the agents are going to be doing probably 80-90% of the repetitive manual type of work that humans, to be honest, don't want to do anyway. I think we really have a time period where we can really reconnect with each other in the next 10, 15, 20 years, where we'll find ourselves kind of with a lot more time on our hands because the agents will be doing a lot of the work for us. That's not a time to, okay, accumulate more money because now we've laid off all these employees, but now it's a time to get back to nature, get back to caring for more than just the things that we want to accumulate: finance, cars, jewels, all those things. What about the planet? What about the animals? What about the oceans? Things like that. So I think this time period is an amazing time for humans to reconnect. It might be a time period where we've never really had because we've always been so busy. But now we're ushering to this agentic age where, we're going to have a lot of more time on our hands. So it's probably, the greatest time ever for humans, to be honest.
Yes, totally. Marianne, you wanted to comment?
Yes, of course, I work with community, and for me, I think and I truly believe like community is essential. Fulfillment is something we build together. Belonging give us resilience, clarity, and also joy, and remind us that matter not because of what we do, but because of who we are. And I think the most fulfilled people I know are deeply connected to others. And I think, especially in the work I do at Intelligent Foundation, is just build and co-build the mission of open, inclusive financial access. And the is rooted in the belief like the community is the real foundation of progress.
Wow, I would definitely want to continue talking with you all because this conversation has been so, deep and rich, and I really value that you bring this, let's say, view of the world because it's really inspiring and really hopeful, and I think that is the type of conversation we need right now. I want to close on with this question because it brings both the hopeful kind of future, but also the apocalyptic one. Because the more some small amount of people accumulate wealth, the more we increase the amount of debt, the more we degrade the ecosystem. It kind of creates like a reinforcing loop of destruction, and of course there can be solutions, but we have to also see the reality. I mean, I think it was this week that the US just printed like a bunch of money and it's injecting it into the economy. Like I want to see your perspectives on this and which internal and social gaps that widen while wealth grows. So whoever wants to go ahead.
Well, I would just jump in and said, I think the more we acquire wealth or we are fulfilled, kind of gap widen. For example, let's say 5 years ago, most of us here can agree with me that maybe we used to have time for girls chat and have time for little things by the side. But you add business, then you add spouse, then you add maybe kids, then you add so many things, and sometimes it can feel kind of loneliness, and it can kind of widen the gap Some friends may think that you don't care anymore, even when you truly, truly cares. But it's just that you have a lot of responsibilities right now, So the more we kind of acquire wealth, the more we can widen the gap in mostly the more wealth grows, the widen the gap. However, we just have to find a healthy balance on it. We have to be able to be very clear of our expectations and set boundaries. It's very important when, regardless of how much internal responsibility or social responsibilities that we have, is important to set your boundaries clear and have a very clear expectations. I can be able to be there for you tomorrow, but I can be able to be there on weekend. Be very clear, because clarity kind of clears any kind of gap. And communication is important. It could be just a text message. Hey, I won't be able to make it, or I'm running late, something like that. Don't just let the wealth grow. Don't grow your business and then close up relationship. Don't grow money and then close up stability. Don't grow wealth and close up the same channel that help you to grow, right? So because right now with the whole society and the community we live in, relationship is very, very essential, which is also like the community we're talking about. But building relationship, it doesn't have to be personal. It can be a business relationship, but it's very important. So I will, say that how social gap widen is because the wealth is growing, our businesses are growing, we are more busier than how we used to be before. And in that aspect, when we are not clear with our expectation, when we still want to pour from the same cup we used to pour from 3 years ago, 5 years ago, you kind of set, you set yourself up for failure, right? Because you are giving people the expectation that you have time, but then you don't have the time. So it's very important to set your boundaries, what you can do and what you cannot do. And it's good to put yourself as a priority, regardless of how much you want your business to grow. You are the business. So if anything happens to you now, what happened, right? So it's always good to set clear expectation, set clear boundary, and also balance things. Healthy balance start with clarity and intention. So I think that's how we can kind of close the gap that wealth is widened, because it's going to happen.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that we all agree to here is the moment you start your business or whatever you're doing, your intention is for that thing to grow. So growth brings also a lot of, things. So you have to set your intention right and set a very healthy balance between everything you have going on.
Amazing. Thank you, Juliet. We have like 5 more minutes, so each one maybe can comment 1 minute for us to close here. Yeah. Mariana? Yes.
Yes, I'll go ahead and just add that in my time of working with distinct levels of, C-suite execs all the way to just families, simple, mom and pop shops. There's always a gap when it comes to the personal life, but then also the financial things, and they run hand in hand. So sometimes when your personal aspects are not in tune or aligned, then your finances start reflecting it, right? It's very tied in. And so across the years, I've studied, very different methods of not just healing, but also, alchemical reactions within the body, the illnesses that start within our subconscious and then reflect in the outer world. Those are also very prominent within the space. My background's in medicine, so I dove deep into preventative medicine and metaphysics and how to correct all these types of things. And so bringing all that into the finance sphere also, plays a big part, definitely. One of the things when it comes to spiritual gaps, I find, and I was just having this conversation, is the rule of investing in general. The rule number one of investing is investing in yourself. So if you cannot, prioritize all the tasks that you have to do as a person running a company, running an entity, or leading a team, it really just comes down to self-nurturing, and Dr. Juliet mentioned it. It's one of the very important verticals within our daily living, is that we first establish that we have to be okay to then run the entire other thing, or else, when those exterior motives, whether it be people or situations, start going sideways, I guess, as we could say, it means that you have to really come to what you're doing and what you're projecting out into the world, right? It's very tied in. It's very, very tied in. We have to become aware of these things. Investing then in these internal responses. So always managing your time and putting boundaries, as she mentioned already, is super important. It's very, very important to prioritize the things that nurture and give you energy, so then that you can keep, giving to the community and giving back. And on the financial aspect, then it becomes very tied in. You got to invest in alignment, invest in community, invest in cash flowing assets that actually provide a service to those around you. And that's when then you can start seeing a good flux of income and a return on your investment, because you're aligned to the motives behind those companies. So doing your due diligence accordingly, not just investing in something because somebody told you to, but investing because you believe in that. It aligns with your ethics, it aligns with your moral, it aligns with the way you see the world. Then that's where the return really comes in.
Amazing. Thank you, Marianne. Okay, we have 2 minutes. Maybe some closing words. Yes, Jenny?
Oh, I was just going to say, one of the things that I find happens when it comes to these gaps, internally speaking, when I work with folks, is that it is numbness. So we might actually create the money that we're looking for, but then we get numb, which then feeds anxiety and boredom. And then we kind of end up creating more problems, not only in our families, with ourselves, but also in our communities and our businesses. So in terms of finding fulfillment, we have to be aware that we can self-sabotage at any time, any moment of the day. So if we don't have the right tools, the right resources, the right skills, what are we asking ourselves really to do?
Wow, powerful. I'll look into that in my daily activities as well. Who else wants to comment? Marianne, go ahead.
I will say like balance is a practice, not a perk. And today it reminds me like fulfillment is not a destination; is you build it with practice. So when we do that, like wealth becomes like a tool, not the goal.
Wow, super powerful. Antoine, go ahead. You'll be
Yeah, I would
the
just
last,
say,
I think.
yeah, I would just say, piggyback off what everyone else just says. Be mindful, especially as an entrepreneur. When you're building a brand, building a business, it's going to require everything from you. And I've seen personally relationships get strained because I've dedicated everything to growing my business. So just be mindful and reach out to your people and stay connected.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much for this conversation. As I say, I learned so much. Let's keep connected to each other and keep learning from the different wealth perspectives and fulfillment wisdom you all had today. Thank you so much. Our gather was well.
AI accelerated, decentralized economy that we're stepping into. The people who are winning are not the ones with the most tools. They're the ones with the clearest positioning, the strongest systems, and the most authority. And that's important because as the tools get smarter, the noise gets louder. The barrier to entry has never been lower. Anyone can push out content, launch a funnel, or generate a shiny new offer with the help of a chatbot. But that's rare now. And what will only become rarer is trustable leadership. I'm a strategist who works with coaches, consultants, and experts, the people building knowledge-based, service-based, and transformation-driven businesses. And my focus is not on helping them do more, it's helping them become more trustable, scalable, and client-ready by design. Because trust, and I'm talking about real trust here, cannot be hacked, but it can be built into the architecture of your business. We're seeing 3 major shifts that every expert should know. Number 1, AI is making average easier. We've entered the content inflation era. Everyone's creating, everyone's promoting. So when everyone's putting out material, what stands out? Well, clarity. Clarity really stands out. And clarity doesn't come from massive volume. It comes from positioning, from choosing who you serve, how you serve them, and how you articulate value so precisely that your audience immediately says, that's for me. Now, number 2, money is really moving at a very fast pace. In the old days, clients would tiptoe toward the big decision, right? Low ticket product, webinar, nurture sequence, maybe buy something bigger later. They would ascend. But that's changed. Clients are much more values driven today, time conscious, and trust sensitive than ever. They don't want a ladder, they want alignment. And that's why we teach the opposite of the ascension model in our business. We start at the top and we help our clients lead with their highest value offer, not because it's flashy, but because it's usually the clearest, most comprehensive and transformative thing that they have. And when you position it properly with authority baked in, your best fit clients will self-select. So there's no pressure and no convincing. Then after you've crossed your first 6 figures or 7 figures, then you can descend, build out supporting offers if they serve your mission. But the core of your business remains rooted in depth, not volume. Number 3, systems aren't just about scale. They're really about safety, not just for you as a founder, but for the client experience that you're delivering. I see too many experts trying to build empires on energy alone, marketing nonstop, launching every month, stuck in a constant churn cycle. But a premium business is not built on hustle. It's built on alignment, it's built on infrastructure and clarity, the things that allow your business to breathe, to protect your capacity, to maintain integrity when the demand increases. And the best systems, they don't replace humanity, they actually support it. They free you to show up better, right? To serve deeper and to work from a place of intention and not just survival. So the real question isn't, how can I get more leads? It's, how do I build a business where trust and premium value are baked in and clients come to me pre-qualified, ready, and aligned? So here's what that takes. 1, it's definitely going to take authority positioning. So your value is obvious, not buried somewhere deep in content. When someone lands on your profile, your homepage, or hears you speak, they know exactly what you do, who it's for, and why it's premium. Offer architecture is another thing to look at. You start with your best, your most transformative offer, not a $27 ebook. You solve real problems for people ready to take action. And then simple systems, right? No funnels that require 43 different touch points, just smart, streamlined systems that create consistent, predictable, premium clients with space for humanity, clarity, and real service. None of this is about doing more. It's about doing what works and doing it ethically, clearly, and sustainably. It's about building a business that works for you and for the people that it serves. So that's why I'm excited to share this with you at GatherVerse and in this community, because GatherVerse is committed to human first technology, which I love and support. And I believe business should be human first too, especially in the AI era. When we use systems to protect people and not pressure them, when we lead with clarity instead of manipulation, when we prioritize trust over tactics, that's when we create something that's not just scalable, but meaningful. So if you're a coach, a consultant, or expert who's building a business that reflects your values, and you want to generate clients predictably without the grind, then I'm your person. I'd love to connect with you. I'd invite you to send me a message and even attend one of our upcoming events. We go deep into positioning premium models and systems at work, which is rooted in trust and not trends. So you can connect with me directly on LinkedIn or Facebook. I'd love to hear what you're building and what clarity you need next.
I guess I'm kicking things off then, since I'm on this side. Greetings and welcome to GatherVerse Money Summit, Day 2, and one amazing roundtable that we had in the first part. So much discussion was happening. So many people had so many points of views. It's probably one of the most interesting roundtables that I've heard in a while, but of course, we're going to have a little discussion ourselves, Christopher. So great to see you and welcome. And yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on GatherVerse Money Summit for so far, especially for Day 2?
I think it's scaling just fine. And we have everyone that's here with us at GatherVerse.live. So happy to have everyone. And we have people over our social streams and our restreams broadcasting. Truth be told, we don't know how many people on our social streams are out there in the World Wide Web, but whoever you are and wherever you are, we'd like to say hello, because our speakers also share to their networks as well, which is fantastic. And so it's been enlightening. It's interesting. I think the common thematic that I've heard, Russell, and I don't know, and I asked the same of you from your roundtable, even from yesterday and the other roundtables we've had, is a sense of community. It's interesting how people relate money to community and what that means when it comes to the buy, sell, and trade ecosystem, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's honestly the dynamic of when it comes to currencies and digital currencies in general. I think, we spoke about it yesterday, right? When it comes to the trust side of things and how important that is, and being able to see the transactions from one to another. So yeah, like I think the Money Summit is extremely important, and the discussions that we're having is extremely important too. And yeah, so I mean, so far I think the last 2 days have been fantastic, especially yesterday. And I'm interested to see, obviously, what more interesting discussions we're going to be having, including up next the Intelligent Earth, extending the art of cultivation in the age of innovation, which is going to be very interesting, which is coming up next, the panel. So it's going to be moderated by obviously Salvation, and also I'm going to have Lynn, of course, from the GatherVerse team on that panel as well. So looking forward to that as well. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I think when it comes to the verification standpoint, when it comes to digital currencies, I think that's extremely important. And at the end of the day, we need verifiability, which I think is a very big missing factor in all this. So
I agree. More on the roundtable that we're about to Havens preparing now on human-centered finance. I think that speaks more in the community. And I think in a community setting, in fact, I don't think I know, in a community setting, trust and verifiability is tantamount, isn't it? I mean, you start thinking about these transactions that we have, and we still live in a world where, fiat, physical currency and spending, whether it was the shilling or whether we're dealing with the rupee or dealing with the euro or the yen, pound, dollar, if you will, still effective, very archaic. And you start thinking about these new ways of being able to distribute capital and digital resources. If you look at the M-Pesa in Africa, and it's an incredible currency created. I think the continent has been very advanced when it comes to fintech and the use therein. I mean, they use this in many ways in respects more than the shilling in Kenya, Nairobi. And so I find it very fascinating that we're in this transitionary period of technology and scale and change, and how we'll look at how we'll use digital currencies in particular to be able to sustain whole entire communities. It's the agreeable, immutable ledger, isn't it, Russell?
Yeah, I mean, I call it the disputed ledger because you can't change anything on there. But yeah, of course. I also think as well, stable coins are going to play an important role when it comes to that adoption. So, we need stable currency, we need a non-volatile currency, and we also need, sustainable currency as well. So, and I think stable coins will be able to do that.
How do you think that intersects with AI though? It's interesting, the Web3 world. They've been so encouched in NFTs and blockchain and stable coins, meme coins, altcoins. But it's very quiet when we start thinking about intersectional AI. And I think you and I know it's because of the trust factor has been the big shift of what we're seeing in platforms like Just Verify and more. But what do you think about that? The intersection of AI and the immutable ledger, this data timestamped?
That I honestly think that's going to be the future. I honestly think that the immutable ledger is going to play a very important role when it comes to transaction for currencies between one agentic model versus another agentic model. Also, when it comes to negotiations, could models play a factor in that? Absolutely. The more smarter the model, obviously, the more stronger the model will be in terms of the negotiation factors of that, from currency to currency and trading, etc. But I also potentially think that maybe the future that we're going to be going into when it comes to AI, I think maybe that potentially agentics and AI and maybe even physical AI might even potentially doing the work for us, and then we'll get paid by stable coins, by crypto, for the work in which our AI does on our behalf. So I could see that potentially being the future, because everything's going to be autonomous, and if they're going to be more smarter than us, well, then the only way is that the workforce becomes AI in a nutshell. So the only way that you can have that, or like a sustainable future, is the AI work on your behalf. So to your point on the blockchain part, though, the blockchain part is going to be the fundamental foundation to this, to the transparency side, to the trustworthiness, to the accountability as well, right? Making sure that we're holding people accountable for that as well. And also just the immutability of it in terms of, once it's locked on there, it can't be changed or tampered with. And also the anonymization too, right? When it comes to transaction from one wallet to another. Because I think if you think about just like the wallets that you have on your phone, like the Google Pay, right? Technically that's a wallet. So if you think about the Web3 wallets, they're no different than the wallets as like Apple Go, also Apple Pay, Google Pay. They're all the same wallet. So in a nutshell, that's what I think. But I'm not sure what your thoughts are now, though, Christopher.
No, I think you're right. I think physical AI to robotic infrastructure and the true intelligent chain. I know a lot of people talk about the intelligent multi-chain layer 2, if you will. I don't completely agree that it's going to be what we know it to be now. I think it'll be deterministic, but I believe what humans have failed to do when it comes to connecting greater civilization and understanding the benefits of blockchain, I believe that AI will succeed, and I believe that agentic systems will succeed where humans have failed to become educators of these extraordinarily powerful and very useful, quite useful technologies and tools. And so we'll get to our next roundtable now. Russell, you and I could do this all day.
I just want to add on one thing. Sorry, and then we can jump to the panel. But
please.
I also think another big factor within all this is because we live in AI and Web3 and technology, and we live that every day. We work at the frontiers and the front line of AI every day. Yeah. But the point what I'm getting at is majority of the people don't understand it.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the biggest factors as well, is how we said yesterday, meeting people where they're at. I think that's also one factor within that too. But just want to add that as well, is the understanding, is needs to be caught up as well within all this. So yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree. I'm an advocate for technologists in particular becoming educators.
Yeah.
It may be a different pay grade, but I think there's just an imbue of responsibility that we have from working in the frontier. Lewis and Clark, Sacagawea, Ponce de Leon, explorers sought a new world, rolled the dice, and they landed, but they left the map on a way to be able to go, which way to go, which way not to go. And so I agree with you, Russell, wholeheartedly. Thank you for sharing that. And audience, GatherVerse.live, we're coming up with our next roundtable discussion led by Salvation. Chigoroka. May our gather be well.
May our gather be well.
Greetings and welcome to GatherVerse Money Summit. Panelists, it's good to see you. Good to have you join us today. My name is Salvation Chigaroka, and I'm an operations and product manager. I'm also a community builder. Thanks to the GatherVerse team, I'm joining here as a moderator. So I will be your moderator for today's panel. And before we kick off, I'd like for you to introduce yourself and tell me where you're joining in from, and then we'll get started. I would like to start with you, James, and then we'll go to Anish before Lynn. So please, James, unmute your mic and introduce yourself and tell us where you're joining in.
Thank you, Salvation. What a beautiful name.
Thank you.
I'm dialing in from Mindful Mountain in the mountains of Allentown, Pennsylvania. I am James Welniak, and I am the Director of Mindfulness and Focus with Cup Advisory. I am advising clients to unravel and mitigate the riddle of our age. How artificial am I? This is accomplished with a modernized Serenity playbook called a Mindful Relationship with Information, MRI for short, to balance, protect the self, and even razor sharpen focus. I'm also the face of screen addiction, recovery, prevention, and transformation. This was me in June 2023. My clients have a face for the disease and know they are not alone. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you very much, James, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you very much. We're happy to have you on the panel today.
Thank you.
Anish, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anish Bhaiti. I am an Australian citizen. I've lived in Australia for about a decade, but I'm currently joining in from India. I run a business called Strain My Brain. I'm a qualified chartered accountant turned into an Ikigai coach. So very much similar to what James is doing, mindfulness. It's a beautiful journey, and I'm hoping to add some more value into today's discussion. Let's see. I'm always open for opportunities where I can help people design their life, not live by default. So thank you very much for having me. And over to you.
Thank you so much, Anish. Very welcome on the panel. It's so good to have someone on the mindfulness journey as well. Thank you. Lynn, please.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're from. My name is Lynn Guitar, the Communications Director for GatherVerse. We welcome you here for this panel, and I'm very, very excited to see what we have for today. Thank you, Salvation, for having us.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Thank you so much. Let's get started. Are you ready, panelists?
Yes,
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. So today's conversation concerns us. And the one question that comes to mind before I joined this panel section was, do our financial system really put people first? And when I think of human-centered finance, I don't just think of fintech application and algorithms. I think of people like you and I, Anish, James, and Lynn. And we are people, and the financial system is built for us. And people need stability. They need a fair chance at everything. Whether it's in business or in education or career, they need to trust the system that is designed for them. And then this will bring me to the first question for today's panel. James, I'd like for you to start with us and share with us what you think. Where does the financial accessibility, where does financial accessibility, sorry, let me get a question. Yes, sorry. Where does financial accessibility fail most, and how can that be addressed globally?
That is a powerful question, and I think I listened in a little bit when they were calling it something about verifiability. And so within Cup Advisory, which is the organization that I work with, we use the trinity of being human, which is mind, body, spirit. And so I will apply this through that lens. So for mind, what I would say is that people don't understand complex systems. Make money tools clear. And one example I can give you is my mother. She passed away a couple of years ago from cancer. She was a retired professional nursing, and she had so many problems with screens, and working through fraud. And then it goes into the body. Money can't afford fees or travel. I'm sorry, many people can't afford. People can't afford screens. They can't afford. So when you have healthcare and you have finances all through a screen, you have to take that human connection, that human sentiment, that mind, body, spirit. And then the last one is spirit. So it's not about spirituality, it's about your emotions, respect, identity, respect where you're from, culture. Look where we're at. We're dialed in all over the world. And so if we follow these principles, these mind, body, spirit principles, I think we can have a healthier and balanced and transformative experience in the age of AI. I would love your sentiments. What do you think of that?
No, thank you very much, James. And I'm really sorry about your mother. I would say I agree with you on that when you say identity. I love the word identity. And so thank you so much for sharing that with us. Anish, what's your take on this?
So I really like this quote. It says that it's very simple to make things complicated, and it's very complex to make things simple. I think a lot of people face a problem with respect to, like, as James was telling, what the kind of difficulty which his mother faced. So I mean, like, if we can make the documentation very simple, if we can make the fees and the policies, and like, it's just such a thick document, when you actually go into a banking system, and you have to read so many documentation before you sign up. You don't even know what you're signing up for. So if you can make it very simple, if you can just make the complex form like just one pager, so that basic details. You can also have, like, a lot of places we have English only apps, so we can also think in terms of making it very like a vernacular. Like in India, we have so many states, we have so many languages. So if I think of India, maybe if they can make like a specific region specific app which can help. Maybe icon-based navigation, if that is possible, voice support, maybe having a human answering, not an AI answering your problems. So those are some of the things which I personally feel that the first point of contact, as we usually say, should be very smooth, relaxed, and simple. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anish. I totally agree with you on that. I'm also a product manager myself. So I think UX should be simple, less complex, more human connected, and real. Lorna, I see you've joined us. Thank you for joining the Grand Panel table section. Before I come to you, Lynn, please, Lorna, introduce yourself and tell us where you're joining us from.
Hi, I'm Lorna McFarland, and I'm joining from Moreno Valley, California. Sorry for sounding a little stuffy. I was under the weather the last 4 days, but I was determined to get out of the bed into the shower and be here to celebrate with you all and share what we have to offer.
Thank you so much for joining us, Lorna, and I'm so sorry about your health. It's good to see you here. Thank you for being determined. Thank you so much. And Lynn, I'd like for you, before we come back, Lynn, I'd like for you to take us through the next question. What does universal financial participation look like in a digital world?
Yeah, so for me, financial participation for me means everyone having the access to financial resources, everyone having access to financial well-being or economic opportunities. It's not just about having the finances, but can we just talk about the opportunities that bring in financial resources? So until we have we're a place whereby each and every person around the world has an equal right to financial opportunity, then for me that is where financial participation looks like in a digital world. And before even we go to the digital world, how many of us have access to the fiat currency itself? How many people come into contact with the fiat, that is the physical money itself? I've done some study, and there's some shocking statistic, especially maybe in a country like here in Kenya, whereby over so many people are living under $1. Can you imagine?
Wow.
I don't have the exact statistic, but we can check it out. We have people living under $1, and these people have families to feed, and these people have bills to pay. And so when you're talking even about digital world, can we just look at the people who live under $1 a day, or that is equal to 100 shillings a day? How do you get these people to have a decent financial participation? And then that is where we can bring in the digital world. Can we drag that right now to the digital side of it? But first of all, let's give financial opportunity to everyone.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you very much. I really cannot imagine people living on that $8. That's bad.
And it's
sharing that with us, Lynn. Thank you. Lorna, let's follow up on this question with you, Lorna. What do you think?
I think that if we make it possible for them to have access, say, to some digital products that won't cost them any money to invest in, like a budget planner or a budget tracker or goal setting thing, some sort of like digital products that they can be able to tailorize to whatever type of customer it is, then if those things, even if they just sold them for $5 each, and we show them how they could sell one a day, that's like $150 in a month. So what is that? 150xing their current income. And even if all of them were coming together using the same cell phone and 10 people being able to work off of one phone, they could probably in the course of a week begin to change their situation. And then we could help them to scale from there. And then I wanted to piggyback on the earlier point about making it easy for people to have accessibility to the bank accounts and things like that. Sometimes instead of them, you having to call in 5, 6, 7 times with your struggle, if they just made it the protocol to say, do you give me permission to share your screen so I can help you to get through this application in 2 minutes? Because sometimes people feel a little embarrassed or intimidated to say, I don't understand. I don't even know what these words mean. So they say, oh, I'll call back or I'll come back. And it could be a month or two before they get back to it. And so same thing, we can help them this fast as ChatGPT can give us an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anish, I saw you, James, rather, I saw you nodding. Would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting how we used to call, I'm 52, so I'm going to show my age. So we used to call it common sense, and now common sense has been rebranded to mindfulness. Because here's the thing, it's about clarity and confidence and inclusion. And so you should know what you're signing up for. Think about, well, in America, we are programmed to be productive. And so when you go to sign anything, a bank loan, anything, there's all screens and you just have to sign, do. Do you know what you're signing? You go to Instagram. Does that teenager know that they have sacrificed and given their entire identity that has traces all the way through? This is the crisis of our age because we are giving away our identity. And so it's like we have got to look at this from a mind, body, spirit, human lens because otherwise we will lose. You shouldn't have to have a cell phone to live. Think about how much money kids are not getting food because their mom has to pay for a screen around the world. And I was in not Africa, I was in Brazil in October for 10 days for a wedding. And I observed Brazil is 10 years behind America. And it's shocking to see as an observer to see how much how people don't connect. They sit at a table now with a phone versus with each other. And it made me cry. So when we get back to this, that has to be the start of the conversation. How artificial are we? How artificial is this solution? How artificial is this product? And that measure then goes up against the human connection. That's our value. How does this make me feel? Does it make me scared because I can't read the text or too many notifications like my mother? Or they're stealing from me, Jimmy, help me? Having to call the bank president, and get them on the phone. This is the madness, the mindlessness world that we live in.
Thank you, James. Thank you for putting it that way, James. I think we all get it. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for letting us talk.
Thanks. Anish, let me come with you on this one. Which human needs should guide every financial innovation? I see you're also part of the financial industry as well. You have some experience in that industry. Can you please share with us on this?
Sure. So this reminds me, I did one UPW, Unleash the Power Within, Tony Robbins' very famous sort of program. I did that in Sydney, and he talks about 6 human needs. So he talks about certainty, uncertainty, love and connection, significance, contribution, and growth. So I just want to focus more on the lines of love and connection. It might sound like a cliche, but I personally feel that, when a financial institution is coming up with innovative products, it's never about, increasing the options. It's all about how much anxiety they reduce. There's a lot of anxiety, which product should I be choosing, etc. So you are giving them options, but the whole idea is, are you able to reduce the anxiety? So let me just give you an example, like simple task like auto debit. We all forget. There are so many bills which we have to pay. If we just simply forget, there is a lot of stress, there is a lot of anxiety around it. So the fear of forgetting, if you can simply use that auto debit bill payment, if that works, this will just help that individual to release the anxiety, release the stress. There are things like building clarity around the product, building the trust. I think trust is very important, because I was just listening to Russell and Christopher before, and they did talk about trust. And obviously that is one of the human need, which is very, very important when you are dealing with a financial institution, because you are putting your money there, you are putting your savings there, and you want to have that sort of a trust and bond and connection. Basically, emotional safety is another one. And I also think that an individual should feel a sense of control of their own finance. So they should be able to make their own decision with the guidance, with the feedback, with the pointers. That's fine, but they should feel in control. So yeah, that's my.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I also think so. I agree with you on everything you pointed out, especially when it comes to trust, because without trust in the system, it's difficult to get people involved. People need transparency. They need to know that we're safe here, and that reduces anxiety. So I totally agree with you, Anish. Thank you very much. Lynn, do you have something to add to this?
Absolutely, yeah. I just want to echo what Anish said, and this is something that has been doing the rounds since we started the Money Summit. That is trust. We've had Christopher and Russell, we've had it from other panels. You know, when we talk about trust, it's about how do we get people to really just be in tune with what you're creating? And for me, the best way I could answer that is empathy. If you're empathetic, the financial system is really empathetic with the people who are using them. That is the bankers of the world, the financial investments of the world, all the financial systems that we have. If they are really empathetic with the users, sorry to use users, I've been told not to say people are users, but let me just use the word users. If they're very empathetic with the users, that is how you gain the trust with them. So I absolutely love the idea of trust, and let's make it happen by conversations like this.
Yes, Lynn, thank you very much. I would say too that trust is very important. Even as I build products and then I write user stories for the ideal users, let me borrow your word there, Lynn. I have to make sure what I am creating, the story I am creating, is for people that are real because they are the people to use this product. And without them trusting this product, I am unable to sell to them. And it's very important I consider their emotions, I consider their situations, and I consider their environment before I create a product for them. So it's very important to build with trust, to build with inclusion, to build with transparency. Thank you very much for that, Lynn. Lorna, let's come to you with this on culture. What role should culture play in the redesign of financial systems?
The role that culture should play in the design of financial systems is being mindful. Like if you, I know we talked about cell phones earlier, but have you ever noticed how like Boost Mobile, they used to have it where you could have the voice of the person talking to you on the phone to sound like a young person or sound kind of what's the word? I don't want to say hood or something like that, but just like the group. So I think that in terms of, can you repeat the first part again? As the Dayquil is talking.
Okay, yes, sure. What role should culture play in the redesign of financial system? That is like, say for example, a group of people in a geographics and they want to build up something in that environment. What role
Okay.
can culture play in building a financial system?
Okay. So I think that of the role that culture could play is to offer and educate about something that's going to be uh, that particular culture would be able to grasp. For example, say people that live in an area in, say, the United States or something like that, where the median home value is only $80,000. So then maybe instead of trying to show people how they can save for 30 years to get a house in some different area, show them how they can maybe come together and get, say, some manufactured home or something like that for $70,000 that's attainable for their income in their neighborhood, and then later on that property could become their first rental income, and then later on they could be able to qualify for a mortgage to do something better. But instead of making it seem like you have to save up for a $700,000 house, when it do you kind of feel what I'm saying, to
Yes,
make
I do.
something that's tailored and attainable for them, instead of just something where you're encouraging people to continue to believe that the best that they can do is paying someone else's mortgage.
Thank you, thank you. I like the word tailor down to the group of people. I really like that. James, you want to add to this?
Yeah, let me take myself off mute. Yeah, I love this one because culture. You know, we hear so much about what AI can do for businesses, what it can do to make things cheaper. What about we create an AI ambassador for culture so that actually it saves it, so people remember. And so we have so much culture, so many subcultures that are being lost because of screens. People are losing their sense of self. They're losing their sense of community, their sense of purpose. I understand. It happened to me and it happening to my clients. So when we look at it from a culture aspect, I think AI has to understand what that means. And that is by simplifying a words. Hey, if it's called a hood, then it's called a hood in your culture. You know, we can't simplify everything down to one piece. We have to keep the culture piece. So if we design solutions, specifically AI, create an AI culture ambassador not just for your organization, but for your people. So that way that history is not lost. It's not lost in books when books are not used anymore. It seems like a little strange idea, but it's like, let's shift. We can use AI and AI technology to even train people in other parts of the world how to save money. An AI agent can actually teach them how to do this. And then you can actually develop an AI that is culturally understands the challenges and the things and can send them reminders. It's a coach in a way where it helps them about how to save in your particular ecosystem and where you are then, so they don't have to have the dollar a day that an AI or an agent knows. It knows and understands and empathizes with you and is your I will, I am, I know agent of culture and of purpose. And so when we look at it from that human lens, we have the technology to make all these different solutions and to support cultures and subcultures. We just have to change the way we think about AI.
James, I see you bringing the AI angle to this on culture, and that's brilliant. That you have a point there. But earlier on, Anish said something about when he goes to the bank and then he goes to the customer service and he wants to call on the customer, he doesn't want to be met with an AI too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's not you
Yeah.
have an option. You have an option to be, I want to be human. I don't want to talk to, I can't tell you how many scam calls I get in America. I get like 6 a day. Nobody calls me. And that's why nobody calls anymore in America, because everybody's getting, this. And we have laws in this country. Why is this happening? And this is what this is how screen addiction, phone addiction starts. It hooks in. It's called secondhand smoking. Remember that? We are all becoming affected, even if we don't have a phone. And that's where we have to change the conversation about AI. AI. No, have the option. I want to opt out. I want a card. I want to have that ability, because that's human. That's called embodiment of a physical object. You actually have sentiments and emotional connection to physical objects. We remove everything physical in our lives, we're going to be depressed and sad.
Anish, I see you smiling there. Would you like to add something to this?
Well, I agree with James, because I would also prefer, I mean, AI as a tool, amazing, but I would certainly prefer like human connection, even on phone or even in a social circle. I would rather prefer to have human to human connection. Coming to the question, I would say that, culture actually defines how people save money, how they spend money, how they want to invest their money, what is their definition of money. So just to give an example, like in Asia, people prefer to save money. Okay, they want to save first and then spend later. So if they can design in Asian countries, if they can design a system where they promote personal savings, that will help that community. Say, for example, US and maybe Australia in that case, we have a culture of BNPL, buy now, pay later, so if you can design something around that culture, people will, basically gel with that sort of a product. In Africa, if I may, I would say that it's more community-based finance. So they prefer things which reflect the group trust model. So if you can create something around the group or the community, it will really work well. In maybe Muslim, countries, they prefer something which is Sharia compliant, financial system. If they do something around that, so basically each community, each group, each culture has their own sort of definition about how they want to save, how they want to spend, how they want to invest the money. So if you can just design the financial system around what they need, I think that will help. So it's not like one size fits all. It's basically culture specific. So that's my input for that question.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, James, Lorna. I think you three shared something very much important there. Lynn, a lot has been said on culture. Let me come to you with the next question. How can shared prosperity become measurable beyond income?
Definitely, but let me just add something on culture because I'm also
Right.
passionate about it.
Right.
You see, culture is how people reason, and it's subject to a community or a location or a passing of tradition, right? Culture is how people are influenced in thinking, by the reason of staying together. And so when it comes to money, as Anish had said, it's just subject to communities, right? There's how maybe the Muslim culture handles money. There's how the African, not even the African, personally I come from a tribe called Kikuyu. There's how Kikuyu handle money, and it has been passed on from generations to generations. So if we can crack the code for each culture and customize the financial system for each culture, I think for me that would also create a prosperous future. And now just to answer on this current question that we have here, how do we how can shared prosperity become measurable beyond income? I was listening to the first panel, and prosperity came across to me as something that is relative. For some, it's fulfillment when it comes to family. For some, it's education. For some, it's money, right? And so for me, it depends with how you define prosperity for yourself. For some, it's health. If I'm healthy, I'm prosperous. So it really goes down to even an individual or a family.
Oh, we lost Lynn there. We lost Lynn there. All right, let's move on to the next question. Um, I'll come back to you, Lorna. How do policy frameworks support or hinder human-centered finance? We're talking about policy now. What kind of policy can support or hinder the finance for humans?
Are you on me? Did you say Lorna?
Yes, yes. We lost Lynn on the previous question. Due to our time, let's move to the
Well,
next question.
so some of the policies that can hinder are just certain rules and regulations that different cities and jurisdictions may have. Like, for instance, you may have a family that's had 10 acres of land in the family for the last 40 years, but nobody has come and told them that, did you know that you could do a lot split on your property? And did you know that even if the code said you can only have one house every 4 acres, you could apply for a variance so that you and your family could split this up and get a different parcel number and address for each property? And like I said, even if they start off building a little small home or a new manufactured home, so sometimes there's restrictions that the information isn't dissipated enough so people don't know that they're actually sitting on everything that they've dreamed of, everything that they might want to do, like to be able to have an additional property or have a bigger home or a newer home or be able to maybe even build a small business on there, or a little small restaurant or a little small community center right on property that they may already have that's free and clear, or that they could leverage and pull some of the equity or something like that. So um, that's my thing, is that there really are a lot of ways people can leverage what they already have, but they're unaware. And I thank God for this platform that is going to be able to spread like wildfire, and people will be able to hear the different nuggets that each of us are bringing. And if they just can grab one and share it with someone, it can begin to make a massive difference.
Thank you. Lorna shared a lot there. She shared more on support. James, I want you to just briefly, tell us more of the hindrances.
So the hindrance to me is all about safety at this point. And I talk about, and Anish, you talked about fear, anxiety. And so systems, frameworks should focus on protection of the mind, body, spirit. So that's the intention with alerts, screens. You walk into a restaurant, I walk into my gym as an addict. I had to teach myself to not look, and I teach my clients the same way. I shouldn't have to walk into a gym in America and see 60 screens. Maybe that's a little overboard, but when you're actually driving in a car and you got a screen in your car, and then you got a screen on billboards that are taking you away. I met Eileen Miller. Her son was killed in Illinois. So the Paul Miller's Law, but distracted driving. Our policies in America, we have to have some type of screen law in the future to protect our focus, because all that distraction, guys, is causing us fear. Fear. We're being told something, shown something, buy something, look at me. Well, you know what? You're not looking at yourself and the person next to you, and it's killing your nervous system. There's so much research out there. That's what we should do. Our focus should be on protecting the human.
Protection. Thank you very much. Let me come with this for you, Anish. What design choices make digital finance truly accessible to all literacy levels?
Um, So I think, again, just coming back to my response to the very first question, like how we can make it more visual, how we can make the navigation very smooth, how we can make it in the local language, how we can, how we can make it very frictionless rather than just making them, go through a lot of steps, how we can make make it jargon free. Like these are just some of the things which I personally feel that, if we can uh, just design the system around making it very user friendly, making it easy for them to access, I think that will help. So yeah, that's my
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. I have this comment. It's a comment I read somewhere, and it says, if a grandmother, a teenager, and a new immigrant can use a system without explanation, then the design is accessible. Because
very
accessibility
true.
means designing with the people, not just for them. So
Mm.
I totally agree with you on that. Aline, you have something to add to this?
Yes, definitely. I'm going to give an example when it comes to design. And Kenya is the home for M-Pesa. M-Pesa is a financial system that you can send money from any part of the world. Currently, now it's from any part of the world with just SMS. And how it began is just through SIM card transactions. And what happened was people from the rural village were depending so much on the people from the urban side who were making an income to send some money back home. So there was no point or there was no place of how they could do it. The banking system was weak by then. And someone just came up with a solution and said, how can we send money to the village? How can we make sure our grandmothers, our nieces in the village can have access to financial money? And they came up with M-Pesa. And the most attractive thing of M-Pesa was how easy it was to use. It was like sending a message. Just click this button, send money, write the number, and then boom, the amount, and then send. And within a minute, your grandmother could receive the money. It was so easy, and it could even have a Swahili option such that anyone who speaks Swahili can understand what they're doing. So they incorporated language, they incorporated accessible devices, they incorporated everything that most people have access to. And that is how it became adopted, not only in Kenya, but also in Africa. And I'm seeing the world looking at what is this M-Pesa? How can we make more use of it? So when it comes to design, it's about the simplicity. Can it incorporate even the language of the locals who are using it? Can it be accessible to all devices for the people who don't even have access to internet? So that's basically about design. Make it as simple as possible.
Exactly, Lynn. I totally agree with you on that. I also think that without people using a product or an innovation, it is not innovative. So that's really right there. And great solution with the MBSAT thing. That's really beautiful. We don't have much time on our side. I'd like for us to just move in quickly with the next question and try to wrap it up briefly with this last one. How can the success of inclusive finance be measured beyond transaction volume? Lorna, I'm coming to you now, Lorna. Briefly, just tell us, how can the success of inclusive finance be measured beyond transaction volume?
I think when you look at things that seem like, say you take Cash App, for example, something that was designed to help people who do not have a bank account now be able to have access to have direct deposit to their paycheck. But what about the fact that if somebody's minor child or something is somewhere, say it's some college party and something goes wrong, and now they can be able to use that to be able to call for a Uber, even if they're hiding in a bathroom or they're in some remote village and worried about maybe being taken in human traffic. So something that started off as one way is now a way without going to maybe a dangerous area or unsafe area, an area they can go and let somebody know their location, get someone to send them money, be able to use this technology to pay and get an Uber or something, and then the minute the notification comes, they can, you know, dash out and be safe. So there's just all these other ways that something that's designed for one thing can be impacting, saving somebody's daughter, son, grandchild, preventing a human trafficking, preventing a date rape. And so I'm just looking at the human aspect of how we can go from one thing but be able to be a blessing in so many other ways that are not, you know, thought about.
Thank you, Lorna. I'm really enjoying this conversation, and I wish we have more time on our side. But let's try to wrap it up briefly in one statement, James. What is the future of human-centered financial system in an evolving world? In our world now, what is the future? One
The
sentence.
future, is emotion. It's a human
Ooh.
sentiment. That's what it is. How do people feel? Do you feel safe? Do you feel secure? Do you feel protected? Do you have more time?
Powerful. Thank you. Anish, one sentence. Tell us, what's the future
Yeah.
of human centered?
So I would say that since AI is, you know, is coming up in the future, near future, it is already here and it's going to come in a big way. How about AI tool predicting your financial stress early and giving you some signal? Okay. It might just tell you, hey, you look very stressed today. Don't buy something today. Something like a warning, you know, application that speak local language in a story format. Like, you know, the way we explain to kids, or the, you know, if we are trying to explain something, we just form a story. How about an application explaining you like a difficult sort of a very complex product in a very simple, fun, experiential and a story format? Like, these are like a couple of things which came into my mind in terms of, you know, where the future, you know, is stepping into. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I also agree with you on that. Lynn, share with us, what does the future look like for us in the human-centered financial system?
One-word humanity.
Yes, that's also it, humanity. Thank you. Lorna, please.
Caring.
Caring. These are beautiful words, and these are really beautiful words. Panelists, I really enjoyed my time on today's panel section. I hope the world comes together to see the need to build for humans, with humans, and for the future of humanity. It was a beautiful conversation. Till we see you again, thank you so much for joining this panel section. Thank you for sharing everything you shared, the insights, the perspective. They were all brilliant and beautiful. Audience, please follow our panelists, our speakers, their leaders in their field. Go follow them on their LinkedIn's. And till we see you again, Gada was well. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you, GatherVerse team. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you so
What's going on, GatherVerse? So when wealth isn't enough, what is true fulfillment is the question that I have to talk about today. And I've always thought that is such an interesting concept because I grew up in a town where there was only one country club in about a 30-mile radius. So for those of you who don't know what a country club is, it's basically a very wealthy golf course type of area where some of the wealthiest people in town get together. And so when I moved to Greenwich, Connecticut after college, and there was 8 country clubs in one town, so probably about a 5 to 10-mile radius, I saw a totally different world. And sometimes the wealthy people that I was meeting weren't as happy or fulfilled as you would think. You know, some of them went through awful divorces. Some of them were working 100 hours a week and they were exhausted all the time. Some of them were not in the best shape and they they got to a point where the wealth didn't matter because what mattered more was were they going to be able to live another year. And so I saw two different sides of living growing up. And one thing I was curious, since I live near New York City, is I was curious about some of the homeless people because I started meeting a lot more homeless people, and I started to see some of them smiling more than a very wealthy person. So I decided to do a documentary in 2019 called What Do the Homeless Need? And my goal was to start to figure out, do they need money? Do they need conversations? Do they need food and shelter? Like, what do they actually need? And my conclusion of that really surprised me. So what me and my videographer did is we did this in November, so it was a little colder there. We got hand warmers, we got water bottles, we got some liquid IVs, which is basically what you can pour in the waters and it hydrates you faster. And we got hand sanitizing wipes. So we got all these things that we felt like the homeless people would appreciate, because we didn't just want to like meet them and interview them without giving anything in return. So we had all these things and we started passing them out. About midway through the day, we end up in this area. It's called it's right by Madison Square Garden, and it's called Penn Station. And so there was a big homeless community that hung out around there, and it was almost like a party. Like they just were having a good time. They seemed to be friends with each other around there. And so we started meeting them, and they were shaking our hands. They were taking pictures with us. And then one guy comes up to the camera and he goes, "I got something to say." And so my videographer turns the camera on, and this guy shared 4 minutes of the most inspiring speech that I've probably ever heard in my entire life. His name was The Hammer. He had barely any teeth. I think he had a beer and a brown garbage bag in one hand. But he just got up there and he's like, "I got a message to say." And so I can't say word for word of what he said, but hopefully the summary of it will do it justice. And he said you could go around the world 1,000 times and you're not going to find what you're looking for, because everything you're looking for is inside the palm of your hands. He said, and then he started giving analogies with people who don't have an opportunity for another day. He said, there's people who didn't get out of the womb that would kill to have a breath of fresh air. There's people who haven't been able to get out of a wheelchair for 10, 20, 30 years that would kill for the opportunity to be able to walk. There's people that haven't been able to use their voice that would kill for another opportunity to be able to share a message. And he just started giving a lot of perspective on life. And this was all off the cuff of his head. And I'm saying this all to say that you could go around the world 1,000 times. You could talk to the most successful people in the world. And I bet you almost every one of them would crave what the Hammer had that day, which was fulfillment and appreciation for what he had around him. And I'm saying this all to say that I think no matter how much money you make in life, which I do think is important, one of the best things that you can do is be grateful for the opportunities that you do have in life. And I think that will allow you to be a lot more fulfilled. Thank you so much.
Hi. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, everyone. So, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
I think we have one person yet to join in. Great. So, my name is Anu Rains. I'm the founder of Sustainable Investment Partners, a registered investment advisor based in Massachusetts. So, today, the topic of our panel is the color and gender of money. However, before we start, please keep in mind that this is not a conversation about money as a product. It's about money as a distribution system. Because no matter how good the idea of money is, if the distribution is not designed for the people who need it, and if it's optimized for a select set of people, access will collapse. So in this panel, we have 5 people who sit at 5 access points in the money ecosystem. We have someone from technology, credit, finance, and finally, workspace equity. So regardless of the domain, we'll keep asking the same question in different forms, which is who gets access and why do they get access? And we'll start off with panel introductions. But before we start, I just wanted to express my gratitude to GatherVerse for providing us this platform and giving us the opportunity to share our voices. So we'll kickstart the introductions. So Mike is our automation specialist. Mike, would you like to start off? Mike, I think you might be muted.
So my name is Mike Dixon. I work for Wellington Street Consulting, and I do consulting that's very focused on the human side of technology and center on automation, usability, and have spent a large portion of my career helping organizations to make complex digital tools more intuitive and inclusive for the people who use them.
Thanks, Mike. Next, we'll go to Priya.
Hey guys, I'm Priya Menon, founder of Good American Lands. In my business, I acquire and sell vacant land across all the different states in the United States. In the process, generating cash and also providing people with purchase power for buying land. And I do that through seller financing. So that in a nutshell is what I do. Thanks, Anu, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Priya. Sarah, you go next.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Ryerson. I'm a loan officer with MBA Mortgage in Massachusetts. I'm also a landlord. Primarily, I work with getting first-time home buyers into the property ownership space. I also work with investors too, first-time investors, experienced investors. Pretty much covers it.
Thank you, Sarah. Nargis? Nargis, you're on mute.
Hey, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Anu, for this opportunity. And actually, I come from a long career in product and technology. And over the years, the stock market has always fascinated me. And through the years, I got very much interested in it. And now I work in that space, basically analyzing and teaching people of what the market moves are through price cycles and price behavior, timing, and deeper rhythm that drives the market, basically. So I'm here to share that perspective with you all, and that's about it, basically. So, learning through experience.
Great. Thank you, Nargis. Miriam.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. My name is Miriam Rubin. I'm co-founder and CEO of a consulting group called Listen to Your Mothers. We work with employers to help implement workplace policies and culture that create a competitive edge, not just for moms, but also for the employers themselves. And I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much.
Right. Thanks, all. So let's maybe kick off the discussion with technology. And we'll go to an exciting space first, which is cryptocurrencies. So when cryptocurrencies first appeared, the narrative, it was pretty simple, permissionless by design. But then as the years went by, the use case that actually exploded was the store of value use case. So we are not going there today, but we'll go back to the original promise, a system that was built to create open, permissionless financial mobility. And here's the real question. Did we get what was promised, or did we get something that was totally different? And so that question takes us straight into automation. If the system was supposed to expand access, automation essentially determines who gets in through the gate. So in that regard, Mike, as we push to automate financial systems and money flows, which decision points should never be automated? And from your background in systems integration, what warning signs would tell you if automation has gone too far?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the biggest lessons that I've taken away from my work in automation is that it's excellent at scale and consistency, but terrible at context and compassion. So before we automate, I ask my clients one question, which is, what is your core purpose rather, and what parts of work actually require human connection? The core purpose is the thing that defines who they are, and that should never be automated. So that's kind of one of our founding guidelines, is to never automate their core purpose, but instead to focus on the bureaucracy around that and the things that prevent them from being able to get to that core process. So or as we like to say, we like to automate the bureaucracy and not the humanity of it.
Got it. Thank you. So I guess in terms of the question about when does automation go too far, I guess if I could just think about what you just said, the moment humanity disappears, that's the point at which automation has gone too far. Would that be a reasonable way to think about it?
Yeah, I think that's one of them. So visibility, I think, is an important part of it. So invisible decisions is something that we try to avoid. We also want to make sure that there's always an option for a human override. So lack of human override is another thing to be avoided. And then, the last one would be the loss of purpose.
Got it. Okay, great. So going to cryptocurrencies, when you think about permissionless, or when I think about permissionless or decentralized systems, there's such a heavy burden on users, from setting up the wallets to managing private keys to navigating protocols and so on. So I guess my one question would be, this complexity, is it itself a form of gatekeeping in a way? And what does it actually take to make money and digital assets truly accessible to the people who are currently left out?
I would say that it's an unintentional form of gatekeeping. It definitely wasn't there on purpose, but because it does exist, it is in fact its own form of gatekeeping. I would love to see things like crypto wallets just develop more and have a little bit more streamlined process for transferring funds from one currency to another, for example, or moving things from a staked state to a payable state. These are the types of things that take a pretty high level of knowledge for people to understand that I think your typical person isn't there yet. And we don't have a lot of tools available to us like digital wallets that have a very user-friendly interface. A lot of the digital wallets out there are very bare bones, which is great, but they lack that kind of polish and accessibility to your typical uninitiated user.
Got it. Yeah. And in a way, this has led to the creation of a new financial global elite. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
Yeah, I think so. I would agree with that.
Yeah, because like, when I think about it, like my aunts and uncles, for instance, no one uses cryptocurrencies. No one actually transacts using cryptocurrencies. And if you think about the global population, like what percent of the global population is online? So if you have to actually go back to the whole notion of this is the permissionless entity that's going to kind of like get everyone on the system, I think we have ways to go. I hope we get there, but we have ways to go. Thanks, Mike. So we'll now move on from the digital gate to the financial gate. So we all know that credit, that's like one of the oldest choke points. If you control credit, you control who enters the wealth building cycle. So Sarah, I'd love to go to you next. So the question really is, if like you are a loan officer and you are a landlord, what opened the door for you to go into investing and lending? And over the years, have people in your life, it could be clients or friends, have they followed your path because they trusted your example?
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of preface my experience. I grew up very we grew up on government assistance, my family, so I didn't have that access to wealth. I didn't know that it was a possibility for me. I just started working when I was 16 and saved a lot of money and never knew what to do with it. I didn't have a family to teach me what to do with that. And then what opened the door was I actually had a friend who said, you have these savings, what are you doing to invest it? And I'm not doing anything with it. And he was very much into real estate. So he suggested buying a property. And then, it didn't take too much convincing beyond that. All I needed was someone to say, hey, you need to invest. This is what you can do to invest. And I did that. So that I feel like is what opened the door to where I am now, to me being a loan officer. As far as people following my experience, I think my experience gives me a way to connect with like first-time home buyers who are a little nervous. They think they're not capable, or maybe they are doing they don't think their credit's good enough. They don't think they have the income. They might not fully understand the investment. And it kind of gives me that perspective to talk with them and encourage them, but also encourage them in a way that's realistic and kind of adjust their expectations.
Got it. Okay. And if I'd love to know a little bit about your background as a landlord. So you own, correct me if I'm wrong, you own a multifamily property, and that was like your foray into wealth creation using real estate as a tool. Mm-hmm. What gave you, what gave you the inspiration to do that? Yes, you had a friend, but in terms of do you need to be handy? Like, what is it that, gave you the confidence actually to go in and say, yes, this is a way that I can actually create wealth for myself. And yes, I can do this. Like, is there any story there?
Honestly, I had no idea the level of work that it would take. It was a lot of research before I took the leap. I thought, once I know landlord laws, I buy a decent house. That's going to be, all it will ever be. And it's funny because I would go to see houses and I would see these, I would have experienced realtors and the sellers who had multiple properties. They'd look at me and be like, "Oh, it's your first property. Good for you. Good luck." But yeah, I found that you really do need to be prepared for the worst. I had a flood in my home, and if I didn't do some of the work myself, it would have been significantly more expensive. So yeah, you have to be prepared to learn.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, real estate really is an incredible way to save wealth and to grow wealth, especially when you're a young and upcoming person. It's yeah, and it just ties you to the community and it helps bring structure to your life. So so thank you so much, Sarah. And yeah, and next we'll talk about land. So credit tells us who's allowed in. And if you think about it, land, it's one of the most ancient forms of wealth. Land was like, if you think about blockchain, land, in fact, was one of the original ledgers of who mattered, right? And it's always been gatekept by law, by culture, by emotion, by tradition, and on and on. So over to you, Priya. You have your own company, you deal in the land space. Can you broadly talk about your client base? Amongst your clients, what's the representation of women, maybe people of color, and what patterns or stories do you see at the transaction level?
Sure. Thanks, Anu, again for this opportunity. Now, I want you to think about, when we say the word real estate, after getting into land, I realized that when I say I'm in real estate, most people are thinking houses, right? So our minds naturally drift towards homes, mansions, commercial buildings, shopping malls, and all of that is real estate. But land is actually like an invisible foundation, and majority of people actually overlook land. And you can also attribute it to our lives, because now our modern lives have drifted towards the more urban and suburban areas and away from rural areas. Hence, people really don't know or understand land. So it stands as a very niche and a very deep field. It remains heavily it actually does remain heavily male dominated, to be honest. In my experience, perhaps about 30% of the people who would be women. I deal with I'm primarily dealing online, so I can't really tell you about the people of color aspect of it, but definitely among real estate investors, about 30% of the people I encounter are women. But I will say, talking about stories, what I find is that these women investors are they are pretty compelling in the way they operate, because there is a deep sense of creativity and they're very savvy, because they are leaning into their superpower, which is often undervalued, and that is the ability to build real and genuine trust, right? So in this business, like in a lot of businesses, everything relies on relationships, and this is where women truly shine, because they're not just looking for another deal, they're really looking to create long-term business relationships and connecting on a deeper level. And I'll just throw out a quick example here. I have a fellow female investor who had a former client, who was actually stuck in a non-performing investment. And so she essentially went out of her way to help him right this issue with the non-performing investment, like taking her time to actually make it a performing investment again. And that's the way that I've often seen women operate in this space, where they're really trying to focus on long-term relationships so that the same customers come back over and over again. And so you can say that I want to say that women are focused on relationships, on transaction, on more transformative operations rather than transactions. And it really works well in the world of land investment.
Got it. So that's quite insightful. So you spoke of a few gating factors and you spoke of creativity.
Yeah.
So, and you yourself are an investor. So how do you see creativity and innovation change the story of women investors like yourself? Because like you said, this is a space that's male dominated. It's a space that's been around for generations. So there's a way of doing things. How do you, could you maybe talk a bit on the creativity part of it?
Yeah, you can actually dive into this and you could spend hours and hours on this, but I'll try and focus on just the creativity aspect of it. So just like I said, that women are really focused on, a lot of the women that I see, they're focused on building trust and building community. There is another secret weapon that women bring into any business, right? And that is intuition. So, in my experience, women are very intuitive and rely on these intuitions when making decisions. So, as you might know, I was formerly a product manager in a tech company, and part of my job was to study data and metrics. But another part of it was actually to speak to users. And speaking to users allowed me to tune my gut instinct. And that is really a big differentiator, because that intuition comes from speaking and listening to people, understanding where people are coming from, what they want. When you've listened to these people, you can actually step back from the noise and step back from what everyone else is doing, and you can tune into those creative solutions. So I kind of attribute that to just speaking to people, building that community, building the trust, and hence building out that intuition. And when you do that, the dots sort of connect themselves. You could look at a piece of land and you could say, I know exactly what kind of person would buy these 100 acres of property, or I know whose dream it is to build an off-grid winter cabin, and I know how to make it possible for them with seller financing. Right? Financing, again, like you said, is a gating aspect, and with land, we are able to make it possible for people to have that property ownership. So you can almost say that land is like a blank canvas. And once you've listened to people, once you've kind of honed in on that intuition, you can imagine and create solutions which would not be cookie cutter. And that's what I would say.
Got it. Great. We'll be back to you, Priya. Thank you so much for now. And so land, in a way, it tells us our past, right? And then there's the part of money that feels fast and volatile, which is stocks. So Nargis, over to you. And the question is, so your world is quite transactional. It can be quite fast. How do you, and like you mentioned in your introduction, you shifted careers, right?
Yes.
How do you see your client base? Do you see a gap between genders when it comes to trading decisions? Because what you do is education. And when it comes to real interactions, like what does that look like?
So yes, I do see diversity. Basically, there are more men than women in this field. And as other people has already talked, like Mike had talked, Priya had talked, Sarah had talked, this is mostly coming from a place of who that person is, basically. For example, the way the society had been designed, women were never introduced to how finance works, or rather not involved in the decision making of the finances of the home. It starts from all of there. So like what Sarah had pointed out, when she bought a home, she was not prepared. Okay, all of these things could be included. So that lack of knowledge is there, but lack of ability is not there. So, considering that the stock market is mostly considered as a man's space, so it's very easy for them to be, the hunter. For example, they were always the breadwinner. So for them, it's a fast fingers. They would go and execute and they are prepared in their head, okay, this is the risk. I can be out here, I could be out there. I have booked in my profit, this is my investment, I've booked my loss. So now that lack of being in the space for women, that's where the challenge comes. It's not the lack of ability, but the lack of understanding, because we women don't just jump into things like Priya said, right? We are mostly thought driven gender, let's say, if I can put it in words. We have to know what's going on, how it is going on, what does it mean. So that brings in intention. So there's a deeper intention to things versus, okay, let's get into the space. And if you had seen the ads of stock market where people try to sell you the services, what do you see? You will see a guy sitting with a fancy watch in front of a swimming pool and behind is a big villa, or there's a private plane, they're sitting in a private plane. So the thought is, you know what, this field is so enticing, I would go there and come out walking with a private jet. But reality is not that. It's like any other profession. You learn, you understand, and then you make an educated risk, basically. That's where your psychology comes in, a big input into that. Most of us, be a man or a woman, we definitely have our own fears, especially when you're directly dealing with money. Now, if you can train your psychology to risk management versus jumping into getting profits, there's a whole lot of difference it brings in. Then after that, it doesn't matter if it is a man or woman, color or not color, you are driving from the risk perspective. This is my portfolio, this is how I want to execute, and these are my risk points. It doesn't matter where the world is going. Remember, the stock market was there even before we were born, and it will be there after we are gone. The question is, will your pocket be there? Right? So if your pocket is not there, you are out of the game right there and then. So trading psychology matters a lot, discipline matters a lot, and the only difference which I have experienced between men and women is the intention. Women come with a lot of intention, they do take their time, and once they understand the game, they are a better longer term investors, what I've realized. And men are, they'll go and they'll make their big mullahs and they'll be very, very happy, and they'll go and buy a big car, the gadgets. They're the gadget people, and they're not afraid to show it. Women are afraid to show their success. We are afraid to ask questions, we are afraid to be out there. Me coming into this space, it was a very tough time for me as well to break the ice, to go into the group. And once slowly I understood, and when I started talking the language, I started talking about my numbers, my cycles, and what difference it makes, people understood. Then one person, I remember, there used to be spaces on Twitter when the macro, after the COVID. The men, the way they would talk, they would bash each other on spaces, like live stream. And I used to say, my god, is this how they talk? Should I learn some bad language in order to be there, like some curse word? I really wanted to learn some curse words. Then one day one guy commented, and when I was talking, there used to be silence, and I'm thinking, my god, they don't understand me, nobody's reacting, nobody's saying anything. Then one day one guy, he interrupted and said, Nargis, I'm giving you the title of queen today. And I was like, what happened? He said, we men, we talk so much and we fight so much, but whenever you come and talk, there is absolute silence because people are listening and taking notes. That day, it changed my perspective. That knowledge is true power. Your content is true power. You can go with a jazz and take a picture behind a big villa and everything, but nothing beats the knowledge. Nothing beats how you are giving that knowledge. Having knowledge is one thing, giving that knowledge, teaching that psychology, teaching that discipline takes you a long way, and it has built a place of respect for myself. And I'm truly thankful for people coming out and giving me that feedback. One lady, she had come in, she had a Boeing position, and she had sold some covered calls, and unfortunately her stock was in underwater, and Boeing had jumped up a lot, and her position was definitely underwater. The covered calls were also underwater. So she was like, Nargis, I've seen you talking a lot. What do you think? What can happen here? So then I explained her, taught her actually how options worked. And if there are ways to defend your position, the biggest is, what was your risk and did you define it? And where did you think you would cut off the cord? You first answer that question before even you are going into the market. But apart from that, I taught her some strategies. I taught her how options work. I taught her how, to look at the movement of the stocks, what are the different levels she can watch for, and then make an educated guess if she wants to take a loss or wait for the stock to, come to that position. Few days later, she called, Nargis, that your education really helped me. And instead of taking a loss, I am today profitable. And thanks to you. And, after that, we started getting talking. She took some training from me and all that. And one fine day, she's saying, Nargis, I'll not be able to come next few days because my grandkids are coming. And I was like, what the hell, grandkids? I never thought you were. She said, no, Nargis, I'm 70 plus. And that day, it humbled me. So you see a lot of flavor in the market. So I have some teenagers come in and they come in with such guts so that they own the world. And we people don't have any knowledge or information. That's your teenage world. And then there are people like, that lady who is, 70-year-old and doing all this. So there's a whole landscape out there. The only thing is, what are we making of it?
Yeah. Wow, Nargis, that was amazing.
Thank you.
So when you women in learning, women in trading, and financial spaces. You mentioned that when there's obviously when you go in, there's the upside, and then there's the risk that you're taking when you put capital to work. And if you define your risk ahead of time, that gives you some kind of an idea of, okay, this is when I need to step out, because at the end of the day, the markets can be irrational a lot longer than you can remain solvent, right? So you need to have capital every single time. That's the main premise. So what differences do you observe? Like, if you could, like in terms of women, how do the women you deal with, how do they engage and how do they approach during the early stages? And before you say that, I'll just make it clear that all the panelists are talking about their individual experiences. So everything we say, we are not saying that it's statistically significant. It's a subset of our experiences that we are bringing together. Yeah. So with that, Nargis, if you could, yeah.
Yes. So I have had quite a few interactions with women, let's say it that way. And a lot of them were, the women were coming out of a place of fear. So a few interactions which I had, I'll give some examples, is, some women were recently divorced. Okay. And now they are single or head of the family. And that whole thought of, oh my God, how am I going to manage my finances? It becomes a very, very big issue. And then they have kids also. And, whatever arrangement they may have, now they're thinking that I am solely responsible for myself or for my kids or both. And that's where I was seeing a rushed intention to, jump into the ocean. And that's where one lady had come. I remember she had lost a lot of money. She had bought a lot of tools from the market because, as I was saying, the advertisement is so powerful out there that people, get emotional about, okay, you know what, this is the, what do you call that? The cup, the Holy Grail. This is the Holy Grail and I am going to be a millionaire after that. That thought process have put a lot of people behind, specifically women, basically, because number one, you were, as a society, you were not given the tools to enter into this space. Secondly, now you are in a societal pressure of looking after yourself. So the first thing I told her was, no matter what tool you buy, if you didn't have your process, no tool in the world is going to work, right? So if you bought, she had bought 5-6 tools worth $10,000. Okay. And I was like, did you actually use them for a certain amount of time? Right? That person had developed, even though he had made it for, marketing himself, but it should be working at least 5%, 10%, 20%. Did you dive deep enough to let it work a little bit based on your, whatever understanding you had of that? So that's where I was seeing the lack. There's a lot of intention to enter, but we women generally think, how can I be in the room without entering the room? So that makes it a little bit tougher. And that's where, yeah, and that's where, for example, uh, that those few examples which I had was coming out of fear, coming from a place of fear. But then there are other places where I had seen even men also. One young guy had come and said, Nargis, I had lost so much money and now I'm in credit card debt, because he had taken loan against his credit card and now he was suffering. And I was like, this has nothing to do with stock market or any kind of financial instrument. This is exactly to do with your emotional being and where you are setting a limit for yourself.
Got it. Okay. So net, if you think about it, women, and again, not statistically significant, but based on your experience, there's a lot of preparation. And like you said, understanding, you need to be open to knowing that going in, you can have a loss, understanding the downside risk and being okay to book the risk, book the loss. And then moving on would be kind of like, one big thing for you.
Yes. Booking the loss is very, very important, because your 5%, let's say you had a stop loss at 3%, that 3% of my portfolio, I'm okay to bet on it.
Yes.
The moment it goes down, then did you have a plan? Are you honoring it? One of the things which happens a lot is once the stock is moving up, that euphoria builds in. So your profit target was, say, I would take a profit at 20%, 50%. But then when you see it's going green and green and green, you forget about that profit target. And then you're like, okay, can we go to the moon? Then that moon comes down to earth.
Yeah. So, Nargis, so you have talked about stocks making money, losing money. And before we move on, I just want to name something that's simple but often ignored, which is any conversation of investing works if earnings exist in the first place. And those earnings, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Mostly they are shaped by workplaces and by policies and the systems that determine who rise and who stalls, right? So with that in mind, let's shift from the architecture of money, the distribution of money, to the people inside it. So I'd love to come to you, Miriam. So from your vantage point inside organizations, what's the biggest gap between a woman's ability to create economic value and the structures that determine whether she actually can capture that value?
Yeah, thanks so much for that question. I would start by just kind of outlining like a founding principle, which is in order for a workplace to have really solid policies that are closing gaps, two things need to be true, right? You need to have good policies that are going to help close those gaps and are naming that within the policy, but you also need to have the culture that supports it. And what we see often is, yeah, sure, there are some companies that we see that don't have either good policies or culture. But what we most see, and I'll say in a second that this can perhaps sometimes be even more detrimental, is we see companies that have good policies don't have good culture to support them, or have the strong culture and don't have policies to support them. And as I said before, that can often be more detrimental than companies that don't have either, because it creates this appearance that things are going well and that they have a policy in place that is working, but it's not actually implemented effectively. And so just two examples on that. So a company, I think pay transparency is a really good example for there's been a big push, and I live in Massachusetts. There's actually a law in place now about pay transparency for employers. And so there's some solid policies there. There's been a lot of push to like create policies that have salary bands that are transparent to everybody and processes around compensation review and things like that. However, I've had experiences working with organizations where they have those in place, but they don't have the culture to support, which means that there might be a process on paper. It makes the company look really good in theory because they're like, okay, great, we have an equitable pay policy. And then in practice, there's exceptions that are being made. And the people who make the exceptions and ask for exceptions are historically people with in bigger position, more positions of power, usually not women, not people of color. And so in some ways, it creates this harm where, you know, people can point to, oh, we have this equitable policy, and in the background, it's not what's happening. So that's the example there. On the culture with no policy, we see this a lot with flexible work. And I raise flexible work as an example because right now, you might have seen in the news that there's statistics out there that mothers in particular are dropping out of the workforce at higher rates than they have in the last 40 years. And a lot of it is due to return to work policies. And the thing we see here, and so that's why I think of it as, you know, something that's really perpetuating this gap in economic opportunity. And what we see here is that, you know, a manager, flexible work can really depend on who the manager is. So if there isn't like a policy written, maybe you have a manager who's great, who says, do whatever you need to do, go pick up your kids, whatever, and then your manager leaves. Or somebody else is doing the same job but has a different manager, and it's a totally different thing. And so it leaves a lot of room for inequities to occur. And so as hard as it is to actually document flexible work in a policy, which people are often hesitant to do because in nature, it's just hard to put on paper what that means. It's really critical to have both. And then I guess I would just highlight one example that really puts it into perspective. So I worked with a woman who had a second kid, went out on leave. She was in a high position, you know, a leadership role. She went out on leave, came back from leave, and decided, like, after, you know, trying to work with her employer on some concessions, decided that she needed to leave because it just wasn't sustainable to be in the role that she had and have two kids. At the same time, there was a man who was in a very similar role to her, also had a second kid. And what happened to him? Somebody you might be able to guess, but he actually got promoted. And so that's another example where there was the same leave policy available to both the man and the woman. The woman took it. He decided not to take it. And there was this, and there was the culture piece where after the woman left, people said, you know, oh, well, you know, like that's just what happens. And after the man had a kid, they said, oh, great, it's time for you to be promoted. So I think it's a good example of like where all things need to be at play.
Got it. Okay. And it's kind of interesting when you talk about, you know, policies of like working from home, because right now online and the huge debate is folks have forgotten what it means to be back in the office. And it's one of the things where flexible work really has benefited a lot of women, because women and men, because you save on the commute time, you save on a lot of things, but we are where we are and we need to find a path forward. So I guess, Miriam, in your work with leadership teams, what policies strongly influence whether women step towards financial opportunity, or they just decide, you know what, I'm good where I am, let me just stay away from this?
Yeah, I mean, going back to flexible work, that's a huge one. We did a survey a few years ago of working mothers, and 88% said flexibility was more important than anything else: pay, promotion, opportunities, anything. And we're seeing that again with this policy. I would say just to note, flexible work doesn't always mean remote work. there's many ways to be flexible, including scheduling, making schedules more consistent. And so I think really, like, sometimes it's a cop out to say, well, we can't do remote work, but I would bet millions of dollars that like every industry can find some way to be more flexible than they're currently being. And so I think that's a really important piece, because the number of women who have told me like they're not going to take a promotion, even though they've been approached and asked for one, because their workplace knows that they would do a good job, because they're worried about flexibility, it's staggering. And that's not just a detrimental impact to women, that's a detrimental impact to everybody in the employer included. So I think that's one thing. I think the other few things are more about like career growth and like being transparent about opportunities. So even in the example I gave of the man and woman who had the second kid at the same time, transparency about opportunities for promotion, right? I think there was this assumption built in that the woman wouldn't want the promotion, right? Because nobody talked to her about that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an assumption built in that he did. So I think we can't assume just because of where people are in life, they want one thing or another. And we have to be able, if somebody's doing good work, we have to make sure that we're presenting opportunities to everybody. Also, if there are good people in your workplace, you want to keep them and you want to make sure that they want to be promoted. And so investing in career growth and in good people and making sure that you're talking to them about, like, if you're saying, oh, there's this position we have open, and a woman is saying, my daycare is hard for me to work these hours, you're asking, well, how can we make this work for you? Because we want you here. So I think that's another really important thing. And with that, just like the shift in mindset that we're not talking about just that this is good for moms. This is like employers lose out when they don't do these things. And then the last thing is, I think, we see this both in like sectors and also in jobs specifically. Women are often asked to do labor that they're not compensated for in the name of like professional development and growth, and men are compensated for the same opportunities, right? So when and this happens, even if you compare education to tech, so in the sectors, but also just in positions, there's kind of this sell, like, oh, take this on and this will help you grow. And it's really critical that people be compensated for the additional work that they're being asked to do.
Well, thank you, Maria. Really thoughtful insights. And especially from your vantage point, since you do consulting outside the organization, you essentially have a vantage point in two organizations as you work with them on how they function. So I guess one question to everyone, actually the same question, and I'll just go with you, Miriam, since you spoke last. So in your area, if you were to think of just one structural shift that would create the most immediate access, what would it be if you had to just pick one?
I'd have 10, but I will narrow it down to one. And just going with this topic of like, this is not just a women's issue. This is not just like a parent issue. This is an employer, this is an everybody issue. And it benefits everybody to take action. I think one tangible thing that can demonstrate that is more people taking parental leave that are not birthing parents. So encouraging a culture and a policies that allow for fathers to take parental leave, and thereby like trickling down, not just like from the beginning, equitable distribution of care for children. And that is something that can be long lasting throughout everybody's lives.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Maria. Mike. One shift.
Me.
Yes.
I would say if there was, so same question, right?
Yep.
If there was one policy shift, what would it be? I think this is less of, well, no, it is strictly policy. To monitor employees or gauge employee success based on their productivity or their work output instead of the time that they put in. So moving away from a punch clock. And this speaks really strongly to what Miriam was just talking about. There's more than one way to be flexible. Like there's so many people that are like night owls, like myself. Like I feel more productive after 8 p.m. at night, you know? So I have a tendency to block out work sessions during that time. And that works well for me. That's not going to work for everybody, but that level of flexibility, I think, would be very beneficial to people.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And thank you so much for answering the policy question. So I guess I'll go to you, Sarah, next, and I'll just rephrase the question. What's the one structural shift that would create access for the people who are left out in your space? So your space would be, loan creation.
I think the biggest issue beyond more access to loan products that suit unique situations, that's a big one too, but they do exist. Outside of that is loan officers and brokerages that aren't willing to work with clients long term. People crop up a lot. They don't have the greatest credit history, especially the women I work with. I've dealt with a lot of women that, their focus was on other things, raising their children, their families, things like that. They didn't have the experience. They didn't really understand the impact of, low credit scores and missed payments and things like that. And I think they get turned away by a lot of people who just aren't willing to work with them long term and put in the effort to help. So I think a stronger inclination to help others and work with people would be massive.
Thank you, Sarah. Priya.
Thanks, Anu. It's been wonderful to hear all the insights. And I wanted to add, when we talk about Mindshift, to continue with what Miriam and Sarah and Mike just spoke, a lot of people really feel tied down by their jobs and like there is no way out of the grind. So if I were to talk about a mind shift, I would think that it really comes down to marketing wealth. People need to know that wealth is not glitz and glamour. Wealth is not something that allows you to buy. Wealth is something that allows you to create, right? What is the value that you can create? People need to approach wealth with the thought that it is something that they can invite into their lives. And for, that would, I think, be the major mind shift, that it is something that they can make possible. I mean, just to quote a really small example really fast, think of the Enchanted Kettle and how the Coca-Cola company came into being. If you haven't heard of the Enchanted Kettle, please go look it up. It's a wonderful story. So I think that's what I would say. Like, marketing of wealth is the most important mind shift.
Right. Thank you, Priya. Nargis?
Hey, Anu. The one thing which I would say is, make financial education more accessible, right? We go to school, we learn the math, but nobody tells us how that math can be applied to.
Mm-hmm.
For example, during my journey of learning about the stock market and teaching, I used Fibonacci series, right? And it's a very, very famous series. This is taught in middle school, actually, but nobody told us where to use it. Right? If somebody had told me, Nargis, this could be used in the stock market, I would be a billionaire sitting here today and maybe not talking to you. Right? So these are the things, and now the landscape has changed. We have AI, we have the bots. Today, Elon Musk announced that the judicial system can be replaced by a robotic judge, giving out decisions in a wink. If that is going to happen, then imagine how the financial world is going to change. We need to be ready for it, whether we like it or not. Earlier, we were sending letters, writing letter, going to the post office, putting on a stamp and sending. Then we have the smartphone.
Yeah.
The next revolution is about AI and everything else. So are we prepared for that?
Mm-hmm.
Even today, my husband has been telling me, use ChatGPT, ask him the question, this and that. And I was still very reluctant to do that because I am someone who lives in my head. I rely on my head more than anything else. So relying on asking ChatGPT for certain thing, it would be like, I don't want to, degrade my mind, right? For example, what if I get dementia if I do, you start using, so we need to get out of that thought process and actually use the things, get in the space of what's changing today. And I think there's immense wealth amongst us in the world available for us to grab. I would say that.
Got it. No, thank you, Nargis. And I think we are up on our time. So before we sign off, I just wanted to say thank you all for the clarity and the truth that you brought to this panel. And, everything starts with a thought, right? And conversations like this, it essentially recalibrates what's possible for our systems, especially like you mentioned, Nargis, it's a time of great change for us with AI coming into the scene. And we need to understand what's possible for our systems and what's possible for the people inside them. And I just wanted to say thanks to our audience as well. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for listening deeply. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Anu, and thanks, GatherVerse, for this opportunity. It was nice meeting all of you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.
There are so many things that are possible when humans from around the world, transmetropolitan and transcontinental, come together and arrive to be able to express from their hearts and minds. In particular, at GatherVerse. At GatherVerse.org and at GatherVerse.live, we do our level best to bring different expressions and points of view and narrative on how we can arrive together in the time of incredible and powerful innovation to be able to scale our own understanding on where we're at when it comes to what's next. When we talk about technology and innovation, blockchain and cryptocurrencies and assets, fiat, we talk about artificial intelligence and foundational models and VCHAPA world models and non-deterministic, deterministic systems, agents, so forth and so on. We talk about hyper-realistic immersive simulations. We talk about visual intelligence, spatial computing. We talk about these technologies, we use them, we adopt and subscribe, we share, we make and build. But what does it mean when it comes to our own safety and privacy and trust? I believe two things can be true at the same time. You can innovate at a rapid succession, yet at the same time, we want to make sure that what we're using and what we give to our loved ones, families, is trustworthy. Trust is so huge when it comes to financial exchange. We're heading into a new era of buy, sell, and trade ecosystems and how it evolves and what it involves too. We were able to bring 2 different days of talks and expressions, roundtables, firesides, and different sentiments on exactly where we find ourselves current state and where we might find ourselves tomorrow when it comes to innovation and what it means for money. What does money mean when it comes to large language foundational models and small and micro models? What does currency trade mean when it comes to the intelligent layer of blockchain? When it comes to the material to the virtual layer? How do currencies evolve? And what do they evolve to? And where they might be headed from Web 3 to Web 4 and the leap past 5 to 6? No one truly knows. What we do know is that we're in the most accelerated hyperscale era of our time. And with frontier labs innovating like never before, we will begin to see discoveries that we've only imagined that are found in the pages of novel. And we'll also see on a amorphous scale technologies that we've never even imagined. And most of us haven't even considered. But as we continue to scale when it comes to emergent technologies, and we see all these technologies flourishing together, culminating together, pairing and merging, if you will, we must always remember that when we innovate, we must innovate for human betterment and sustainability. Because if we don't have these essential essence, these things, then the unicorns, the decacorns, the seed, the pre-seed, Series A, B, exit acquisitions, adoption, traction, scalability, none of it means nothing if you have nobody to consume your products. We want to innovate, but we want to show growth when we innovate. We want to present, but we want action that drives towards greater foundation for greater accessibility so that everyone has the opportunity to innovate. Such an incredible roundtable discussion that we just concluded. We thank Anu and her guest for arriving with us today. We thank all the other GatherVerse speakers that have arrived with us this week. We have an incredible food summit tomorrow at the intersection of emerging technologies, thinking about agritech, thinking about climate, sustainable, not just non-GMO, fair trade, organics, but even more. We grow synthetic protein these days. What does that mean for tomorrow? And next week, we have a book summit on authorship. What does it mean to be an author in the AI era, in the age of compute? We hope that you'll join us in 2026 for an amalgamation of summits that we have lined up already. XR for Humanity, Superhero Engine, She Summit, and so much more. We want to say thank you to Pico, who's been a terrific partner with us thus far and has helped to pave the way for us to be able to keep the lights on, power up the GatherVerse studio, and to be able to continue to produce this level of production for free. The only thing we charge is time. And we're so thankful of the time that you give us. We don't take it for granted. We know it means a lot because you'll never get that time again. We hope that your time was well spent with us, that your explorations with GatherVerse has inspired you to want to do more, to share, to hack, to make, to build for humanity, for human betterment, for your families, for your neighbor, for a friend, for a stranger. If you had the desire to speak and to express and to share, if you have something that you have innovated, and if you have something that you have built, join us. Find us at gatherverse.org. The speaker applications are opening and applications are pouring in every day. We're so thankful. 100% organic. Lastly, I'll leave you with this. We are heading at such a time. Now, some are skeptics and disbelievers of where we're heading when it comes to the power and the immensity of artificial intelligence. But I assure you this, as we move forward, when it comes to this type of applied science, It will unlock other sciences that we're unaware of. If there was ever a time that we reached the moral imperative of social responsibility, ethical responsibility, universal trust and verification, if there was ever a time for us to meet this challenge, it's now. If there was ever time for technologists to become educators, it's now. Because if we don't teach the next generations to arrive on what we've innovated today, then something else tomorrow will teach them, will lead them, will guide them. And ultimately, at the heart of innovation, it's not money. It's community, compassion, well-being, and those who care. I believe that innovation will always, in its purest and greatest form, be powered not by compute and not by financial means. Yes, these things matter. But of the success of innovation. And the cost is heart power. We thank you so much. Tell someone about GatherVerse. Tell someone in this very busy world that there is a group of people that care about your well-being, about what you innovate. And you'll always have a friend here at GatherVerse. And for today and this week, our gather was well. And on tomorrow, and the next time we meet, may our gather. Take care and farewell.
He's on a drug. Oh, mothers, tell your children not to do what I have done. Spend your lives in sin and misery in the house Going back to New Orleans, to wear that ball and chain. Well, there is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I know